Liu Sen couldn't find a suitable wand at the Ollivander Wand Shop, and in the end, he grabbed a semi-finished product like a rolling pin. Can you believe that this silly and thick thing is a wand? I don't even want it for free. The stick is 12 inches long, struck by lightning on peach wood, and the core of the stick is a lightning bolt. Although the appearance may seem overwhelming, every spell comes with lightning effects and thunder attributes. Well, it smells so good. Paired with innovative plasma lighting techniques, the Star Wars lightsaber is perfect. Stupid. Old foo, do you dare to take my sword? Daily invention plus one's own power to change, calamity, in the magical world plus single female lead plus non-holy mother. I thought it was a script for reincarnating European and American tycoons, but at the age of 11, I received a Hogwarts admission letter. Dad, you are a physics PhD. Why is one so calm when seeing magic? What? My ancestor Liu Tao. Mom, why are your eyes shining? Huh. You need to expand your business empire into the wizarding world. On the first day of school, it's really not my fault to chop off the explosive skin ghost. My legitimate defense. Why do you call me Hogwarts Devil? The explosion of Hagrid's cabin in the first week of school was really just an accident. I'll start a construction company right away. Just cover it up again and it's done. You three stand back, there's nothing to be afraid of, giant monsters. If you want to cut them into a few pieces, tell me. A few years later, the reporter asked. Mr. Liu, Senator Voldemort has escaped again. Do Galaxy Group have any plans for the next step? Liu, Senator, of course I killed the moon. For all humanity. We have no hesitation. Frederick. Boss, what should I do next? Chapter 1. Begins the journey of magic like this. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Liu Sen pushed the shopping cart, which was filled with newly purchased novelty items. A stack of new magic textbooks, a complete set of crucibles and glass bottles, 3 sets of wizard robes, and protective gloves made of dragon skin. That's right, Liu Sen is about to become a little wizard and go to the legendary Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to study. When Liu Sen received the admission notice, he was shocked beyond measure. He was originally a member of the Crossing Army, living a peaceful life in the original earthly sky. Unexpectedly, after an accident, he opened his eyes and inexplicably turned into a baby. Liu Sen has black hair and blue eyes, and is of mixed Chinese and Western ancestry. The father of this generation is a pure Chinese and a university physics professor. My mother is an authentic British and works as a financial investment advisor in a large company. He always thought he had returned to the ordinary 1980s, and God gave him a script to rebirth himself as a tycoon in Europe and America. At the age of 3, at the request of Liu Sen, her mother Julie invested Liu Sen's lucky money for the next 10 years in a small, rundown computer company. You should know that at that time, the computer giant IBM was at its peak, and the small and broken company was on the brink of bankruptcy due to abuse. Unexpectedly, a year later, the market value of a small breaking company skyrocketed, and even dividends could make the number of people and money in hand cramp for Liu Sen. This is all basic operations. After all, the small and broken company is called Apple, and the ups and downs of gang leader Xiao can also bring multiple opportunities for wealth. Later, Liu Sen invested in Walmart, Gillette Shaver, Chrysler. Often some inconspicuous junk stocks at that time, and the return rate in a few years will make a lot of money for his family. Just as he was about to continue taking advantage of the information gap of the times and embark on Nyo A's sparkling legendary life of wealth, the delivery owl crashed into his window. Unlike Liu Sen Petrochemicals' performance on the spot, Liu Sen's parents were surprisingly calm when they saw the Hogwarts admission notice. Even if Professor Flitwick, who was short in stature, came to visit his home and performed the floating spell, Liu Sen's parents remained calm throughout the journey. Before entering school, young wizards from Muggle families will have teachers come to visit their homes. After Professor Flavia left, Why are you so calm? This is a magic school. There is magic in this world. You don't believe it. It's normal not to believe it, after all, Dad, you have a PhD in physics, Mom, you graduated from Oxford's finance department. Liu Sen's father said, believe it, I told you earlier that your grandfather learned magic when he was a child. Liu Sen said, ha. Is the story I told you when I was a child true? My great-grandfather's family is all wizards. What other position does your great-grandfather hold in the Chinese cultivation world, similar to the European wizarding world? At that time, China was at war, and your grandfather felt that our country had already won the battle in the cultivation world. However, the people were still in dire straits, so he went abroad to study science. It was still us. We were the first group of returned scientists and weapon design experts in New China, and you were also addicted to scientific research under the influence of your grandfather. Later, you went abroad to study and met my mother, and then you had me. Later on, I found out, but the magic family is actually real. Liu Sen's father added, our Chinese side should be called a family of cultivation, and your grandfather's research major is nuclear physics. Liu Sen turned his head stiffly to his mother and asked, do you know that my grandfather's story is true? Oh, I know, but your uncle's biological parents and I are both wizards. We didn't have any magical talent, so we were sent to a host family. They called us Mute Cannon, Liu Sen's father said softly as he hugged his wife's shoulder. Yes, Mute Cannon. Your grandparents are both wizards and collateral members of a big family. They all heard what your uncle said. I was only 3 years old at that time. Your uncle was also 8 years old. They are really outrageous. Do you know that? We have confiscated even a letter or a greeting card in all these years. Not once. Both Liu Sen and his son wanted to comfort her, but Mrs. Liu didn't seem very sad. Liu Sen said, no wonder you never mentioned them. I thought you and your uncle were orphans. And the stories my uncle told me were all true. I didn't remember anything at that time, but your uncle remembered everything and was even sadder. He often drank alone. But it wasn't a big deal, we both made a lot of money later on. Life was also very good. So Liu Sen, who was destined to be associated with magic, happily arrived at Diagon Alley and embarked on a preschool shopping journey. Until the procurement list in his hand was almost completed, the height of Jin Jialong in his wallet had not dropped much. After weighing the heavy weight of the handbag, Liu Sen helplessly said, Dad and Mom are also too worried about the prices here. They insist that I exchange so much money at the Gringotts, and I will have to save some later. Speaking of which, the magic world is too backward, and we are still using metal currency, and what kind of ghosts are these conversion units? 1 gold garon equals 17 silver west, 1 silver west equals 29 copper nuts, although roast a lot, Liu Sen could not hide his joy. In his previous life, he loved this magical world very much, and now the door to the magical world has opened to him. Let me see what else I haven't bought. Work clothes, hats, cloaks, books, all of them. What else is there? Wands. After asking 3 adult wizards, I finally found this small rundown shop in an inconspicuous location. It's really small and broken, the soft cushion in the shop window has faded its color, and a wand stands alone on the dusty exhibition shelf. The golden signboard on the door has peeled off its paint, and it reads, Ollivander, who has been making excellent wands since 382 BC. Hush. Amazing staff making shop. Ah no, make a wand shop. Accompanied by the crisp sound of bells, Liu Sen pushed open the store door. The scene before me was a bit disruptive to the atmosphere. I saw a mess inside the house, with boxes, wands, and packaging paper piled up all over the ground, as if it had just been demolished by huskies not long ago. And an old man with graying hair was waving his wand, patiently tidying up everything with magic. allowing each wand that had not found its owner to float and return to the box where it was originally stored. While organizing, I muttered, "There has never been such a situation before. Of course, a boy who survived a disaster, and that phoenix feather happened to be. Oh, it's a magical coincidence. Let me see. Walnut unicorn tail hair, of course, it's right here. And you? Willow phoenix tail feather, I remember you, let me think. That's right here. Ah. It's a mess, it hasn't been so chaotic in years. Hello." Liu Sen's voice finally caught the attention of the old man. "Oh. Hello young sir, I believe you must need a handy wand." "Yes, my name is Liu Senator. Are you Mr. Ollivander?" "I heard many freshmen discussing their wands on the street, including their parents' wands, all of which were made by you. This is really impressive." "Oh, that's for sure, child. Ollivander. It started in 382 BC. Our families passed down skill from generation to generation." Haha. Upon hearing the proud response of the old man, Liu Sen also smiled. This old man had taken over the wand of all Hogwarts teachers and students, and even the wands of the entire British wizarding world were almost made by him. He is also one of the 3 great wand-making masters in Europe, and such a wand-making master is worthy of respect and praise. Ollivander accelerated the speed of waving his wand in his hand, and soon there was a new space for activity in the store. Don't mind the child, sometimes. Well, a very small number of people who choose wands will lose control a little bit. Later, Liu Sen thought he had returned to the clothing store because Ollivander, like the platinum lady in a formal dress store, measured his arm length, height, head circumference, and other dimensions with a ruler. Staring at Liu Sen for a while longer, the old craftsman had a clear understanding in his heart. So let's start from this one. 9.5 inches, wintergreen wood, with the inner core being the nerve of Fireball Dragon. Give it a try. Liu Sen took it over and secretly asked, "Is this the wand?" This simple appearance, falling into the forest and even taking some time to retrieve from the withered branches. Perhaps not everyone is so primitive, but it is hard to believe from the appearance alone that wizards cannot perform complex magic without this and the tree fork. "Wave it, kid." Liu Sen regained his senses and quickly waved the branch, imagining it as a command post. In front of him, there was not only oxygen, nitrogen, and dust in the air, but also an energy called magic. There was only a muffled sound, accompanied by a burst of sparks. The neatly stacked wand boxes in the corner automatically opened and closed, with a rhythmic sound upon closer inspection. If it weren't for the strong force and the faint sense of toppling from the stacked boxes, Liu Sen would still like to hear what the song is. But when he caught a glimpse of the old man's hand quickly reaching out, Liu Sen quickly placed his wand in Ollivander's hand. "I feel pretty good," Liu Sen said happily. "Not bad." Ollivander shook his head lightly, and without any surprise, withdrew his wand and found another one. Later on, Liu Sen tried more than 10 or 20 sticks in a row, and he only remembered that the opening and closing of the wand box had a bit of "We Will Rock You" rhythm. But Ollivander was somewhat anxious as he grabbed his gray hair. "Impossible. Why are both of them doing this today?" Ollivander muttered softly. Liu Sen also put aside his playful thoughts, and he really hoped to find his own wand soon. After all, it is the most crucial prop for learning magic. "It's okay, child. Remember, it's the wand that chooses the master, not the master who chooses the wand." But then the two of them almost tried all the wands, and even Ollivander, who had been making professional wands for countless years, lost his composure. From his nagging words, he even showed deep suspicion of his own craftsmanship. "Impossible. Even that boy has been found." Liu Sen also began to beat drums in his heart, but he remained calm and comforted. "Don't worry, maybe it's because I tested in the wrong posture or mindset. Maybe I'll try a few more and find it." But Ollivander had a helpless and aggrieved expression on his face, opening his mouth and hesitating to speak. Seeing the old man's expression, Liu Sen also realized the seriousness of the problem. Are you a mute cannon? No, 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 it can't be a squib. As long as he receives the notification, it indicates that he has magical talent and cannot buy his own wand. In a short moment, countless thoughts flashed by, but were rejected one by one. Liu Sen, whose heart was in turmoil, paced back and forth in the newly chaotic wand shop. He casually picked up a thick log from the Ollivander table and struck it in his hand. Is there a possibility that my talent is too strong to find? Well, let's not talk about this possibility for now. So, is there a possibility that a wand that suits me hasn't been made yet? Liu Sen's forehead was drenched in cold sweat, and he finally came into contact with the magical world. If it ended before the beginning, no one could be content. He waved the black log in his hand, which was like a rolling pin, and unnaturally quickened his pace, saying, Mr. Ollivander. You must have a way, right? You can't let me go to school without a wand. Excited, I even forgot to pay my respects to the old man, let alone notice his incredible shocked expression. Liu Sen gestured at the pitch-black log in his hand and said, how about you take a look and customize one for me? There must be some unused materials or core combinations, right? The price is not a problem. Master Ollivander. Awakened, Ollivander looked at Liu Sen and the log in his hand. In such a meaningful gaze, Liu Sen lowered his head and looked into his hand. I saw the body of the rolling pin, which was like a rolling pin, emitting a purple-golden glow beneath its pitch-black exterior, and a fresh breeze blowing from somewhere inside the room. And there was a light from an unknown angle shining on Liu Sen's face. Ah! This! In the atmosphere that seemed like a standard expert appearing, Liu Sen naturally realized what had happened. But this is not exciting. Mr. Ollivander, this reaction and the feeling of this strange bloodline connection cannot be. Liu Sen dared not continue. That's right, child. Although I don't want to admit it, it seems. I'm afraid so, this wand has found its owner. Liu Sen looked at the pitch-black rolling pin in his hand with indifference, his excited heart and trembling hands, trying not to throw it to the ground. He can't help but cry, this guy is too unconventional. If other wizards come to the world of ordinary people, which is the world of muggles, they will definitely be extremely careful to hide their wands. The branch in hand is the key to casting spells, but in the eyes of ordinary people, it is too illogical. Who goes out and carries a branch with them? This can be extremely surprising and easily reveal the identity of a wizard. But there's really no need to worry about Liu Senator. He can take it out openly in front of the police, and if paired with a bag of whole wheat flour, it can be perfectly matched. Whoever looks at this short and thick wooden stick in his hand feels like a rolling pin. Or half a double amputated stick. But when we get to the magic world, it turns the other way around. What is this? When the teacher asked everyone to take out their wands and prepare for class in the future, others waved their wands with lightness, elegance, and silkiness, which turned into violence, ruggedness, and quick use of rolling pins. Humph, hee. It's over. It's useless. Don't worry about this wand. Liu Sen seemed to have heard the mockery of his classmates and saw the teacher's strange gaze. He and Ollivander began to stare big and small, and after some eye contact, the old man spoke up first. Child, this wand has chosen you. Can I refuse? I'm afraid we can't, we've already tried all the wands. But this. Is this a rolling pin or a fire stick? Don't underestimate it. This is a miracle that I have been studying for half my life but have not been able to fully comprehend. It is also a rare treasure material. But are you sure it's a wand? Ollivander lightly touched the pitch-black rolling pin in Liu Sen's hand with his fingertips, and his turbid eyes seemed to be engulfed in memories. My ancestors followed the Romans to migrate to this continent, and since then we have been specializing in making wands. Generation after generation of research has gradually led us to discover the key to wand making. That is, the best wand should contain a magical core, paired with different woods to blend the core. And in the end, the wand will choose the wizard that best suits it. As I often say, the wand chooses its master, not the master chooses the wand. Liu Sen listened absent-mindedly to the old man's story, rejecting the ugly thing in his hand, but the magic inside resonated happily with it. There is even an illusion that this wand is a living creature. Yala, a small arc erupted from the wand, electrocuting Liu Sen's finger as if a bird had pecked at its owner, affectionately greeting. Liu Sen didn't know what expression to make, so he had to ignore it and continue listening to Ollivander's words. We have found that phoenix feathers, unicorn fur, and dragon nerves are the most suitable materials. Our Ollivander wand is mainly made of these core materials. This recipe has been used for many, many years. In my generation, I must say that I have indeed inherited my ancestors' talent for making wands. When I was young, I was full of ambition and always wanted to further improve the wand-making process. But you know, this is not easy. I spent 20 years searching for new materials and trying new techniques. The old man said that his waist was even more straight, and although his eyes were cloudy and white, they shone with a radiance. I have visited experts in magical animals and traveled to many secret realms just to collect more special materials. And this one. Child, don't be fooled by it. This is a lightning-struck peach tree heart. Liu Sen hesitated for a moment and looked at the stick in his hand again. Peach wood is also a magical material in the East, loved by Taoist priests who used exorcism techniques in previous generations of movies and TV dramas. And it's lightning striking the heart of the peach tree. Thunder carries a swaying aura, and is most masculine and fiery, restraining all demons. But it feels like it has nothing to do with magic. So it turned black because it was struck by lightning. Yes, child, that used to be a very lush peach tree, but it was struck straight by a powerful lightning bolt. When I followed the rumors and found it there, the entire tree was destroyed and charred, and only the deepest tree heart could be preserved. It miraculously survived in lightning strikes and flames. Ollivander exclaimed with some excitement, I was like a treasure at that time. I studied this extremely special material tirelessly. Year after year. Cough cough, Master Ollivander, although thunderbolt wood is rare, I heard that in the ancient eastern countries, their mages like to use this material. Ollivander was a bit surprised and said, I didn't expect you to know this. Yes, I've even traveled thousands of miles to that mysterious country. But they don't have such a precedent either. What precedent? Is there a precedent for using core materials to match lightning-struck wood? Ollivander trembled and reached out to brush the lightning-struck peach wood. He didn't know what magic he had used, and the dark wooden body became semi-transparent, with something shining in it. No need to find the core material, there's a lightning bolt inside. The purple golden lightning is like the 9 heavenly thunder in mythology. Strong and majestic, sacred and inviolable. But now it's like a miniature landscape, only moving inside lightning-struck peach trees. It is not a fixed form, constantly changing, but every moment of arc is full of power and beauty. This reminds Liu Sen of the lightning spear of the god King Zeus in the movie. Only then did he believe that this wand was truly extraordinary. The transparent state only lasted for a short time before returning to its pitch-black appearance. Liu Sen recovered from his daze. Although his appearance was very disheveled, he reluctantly accepted this wand. This must be precious, right? Can I buy it? Liu Sen asked. Ollivander smiled in his eyes and observed Liu Sen deeply for a long time. After nodding slightly, he regained his elegant expression and said, No, I mean, there's no need to pay, its value is immeasurable. I spent half my life studying it, but there was no result. I thought it was impossible for anyone to match it, but it's really unbelievable. Ollivander took out his own wand and began organizing the store again, with his back facing Liu Sr., 12 inches, lightning strikes the peachwood shaft, extremely hard. The core is a lightning bolt. He's yours. Mr. Liu Senator, the wand has made a choice. If you have any new discoveries, remember to tell me. Liu Sr., but before I go back on my word, let's go, kid, use it well. Ollivander never turned back, as if he would regret this decision at a glance. Liu Sen held the rolling pin in his hand, hesitated for a while, and then bowed, saying, "Thank you for taking the pain to cut it off. Mr. Ollivander. I will make good use of it." Seeing that Ollivander had no intention of turning around, Liu Sen grabbed a large handful of gold coins from his wallet and gently placed them in the shop window. After bowing again, he left the shop. Ollivander smiled and shook his head, saying in a voice that only he could hear, "Is it Liu Senator, interesting little guy, I look forward to you doing something big." "Oh, of course, I will. Otherwise, you wouldn't have chosen this child, would you?" Chapter 2. Magic and Science. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Liu's backyard, basement. The instrument cannot detect values. However, the indicator light is disturbed by some kind of energy. This is not scientific. Of course it's not scientific. This is magic, Dad. How can a magician's business be said to be scientific? But science is about exploring the unknown. Searching for truth in chaos. Finding the rules within it can decipher everything. The sound of the door opening interrupted the father and son who were focused on studying. Shaosen. Guizhong. Do you want to eat now? Here we go. Immediately. Both of them returned at the same time. Liu Guizhong opened the fully enclosed composite glass cover and retrieved Liu Sen's wand from the surrounding instruments. Upon closer inspection, there was a slight tingling sensation in the palm of the hand, as if gently stroking the sweater filled with static electricity. Liu Sen's mother also tried it before and angrily said, "Is this thing leaking electricity? Is it broken? The wand is very dangerous, let's start studying it from simple things," Liu Sen said as he retrieved the wand. Liu's father pushed his glasses and said, "We don't even use wands in China. I've never heard your grandfather say that." Then he turned his gaze to the other end of the basement and said, "I think these magic props are enough for me to study for a long time. Can you keep your backpack then? Dear Professor Liu. That was specially customized by someone I found. I need to use it when school starts, otherwise that pile of luggage is really deadly." He refers to the backpack specially customized by Liu Sen, and the space inside has been expanded by the untraced stretching curse. At first, Liu Sen couldn't understand why everyone was still pushing heavy luggage in the wizarding world, even though there was a traceless stretching spell. It wasn't until Liu Sen searched around Diagon Alley and found that he couldn't buy a seamless and stretchable box or bag, and asked someone to understand. The Scarless Stretching Mantra is a difficult spell, and most wizards who can cast the Scarless Stretching Mantra are not short of money. Wizards who lack money generally have low magical skills. This leads to the fact that the modified items of the Traceless Stretching Curse are not widely available in any store. And more importantly, this thing has timeliness. It's not a problem for you to compress the tent space into 3 bedrooms and 1 living room when you go out on your own, but the space will return to its original state in a day or two, and your luggage will have to be tossed around again. People with low magical skills may even lose their seamless stretch spell during use, causing their luggage to explode on the ground. If you want to stabilize the expansion space in the long term, you need to use some special magical materials, which will increase the price. So, for the sake of avoiding trouble and saving money, most families may not be able to reach the level of 1 piece per person with the modified suitcase made by the Traceless Stretching Curse. Waving your hand can clean up a new magical world, as well as many dirty and messy shops and hotels. Some parts of the magical world are really difficult to understand. Liu Sen can only complain about it. Fortunately, Liu Sen is not short of money. He spent money to customize a backpack, and the internal space is about the size of 2 bedrooms, ensuring long-term stability. Put your luggage inside and leave as soon as you say. The father and son got up and went to the restaurant. The food had already been heated once, and their research enthusiasm had not diminished since Liu Sen bought it from Diagon Alley. The cat had been tinkering in the basement for 3 days. For various magical props, Liu Guizhong is not particularly keen, such as the set of brass scales and tin-plated crucibles. Too outdated. It can only be used as a toy. To be honest, the old scale I sent to the interns is 700 times more accurate than your handicraft. And that set of crucibles. Oh my God, are they really not afraid of ingredient interference? The melting point of tin is only 231.88 degrees Celsius. And it is easy to react with hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, and nitric acid. It is not scientific to use this type of vessel to heat materials. We didn't use it more than 100 years ago. The two sat at the dining table, while Liu's father was still urging Liu Sen to bring a precision electronic scale that could weigh his hair in a ceramic crucible that was heat-resistant to 1,300 degrees. Dad, I'm going to Diagon Alley again. You know, I can't practice magic at home, Liu Sen said while eating. Of course, let's go together. I need to buy a few more newspapers, as well as their camera and film. Liu Guizhong thought for a moment and replied. By the way. Remind me to buy a new pair of dragon leather gloves, you burned the previous one. Liu Sen said helplessly. Julie gave her husband a fierce glare upon hearing this. Liu Guizhong hurriedly said, Don't be angry, dear. I just want to know what the heat resistance limit of dragon skin is, and also test its tensile strength and chemical stability. If we study the structural characteristics of dragon skin, there will be too many applications. Super insulation layer. Liu Sen interjected. Liu Guizhong praised, That's right, there are also bulletproof vests, space suits. Even new energy materials. It's really regrettable that I don't have magical talent. Your grandfather went early again, otherwise I would have been able to study these things long ago. The two of them finished eating in 3 bites, I finished and then got up and headed straight to the garage. Wait for me, I have arranged to go to Guling Pavilion with your uncle. Broken Cauldron Bar, a room on the 3rd floor. Liu Sen struggled to remove experimental equipment from his backpack, while Professor Liu skillfully adjusted and placed them. Liu Sen took out his wand. Although it was dark and ugly, he found that every spell was accompanied by lightning's cool special effects. And its power is impressive. But not all of it is an advantage. The lightning core brings special effects while also carrying the attributes of lightning. Sensitivity and irritability. Many small magic tricks can cause serious deviations if their strength is not well controlled. For example, Liu Sen practiced the most repair spells. This kind of magic that can restore items to their original state like a backflow of time has great research value. Professor Liu used it countless times to verify whether the molecular structure and physical properties of the repaired object had changed. During the practice, Liu Sen found that even if it was a repair spell, if there were any distractions or poor power control in his heart, it could cause terrifying results. For example, if he uses a repair spell on a torn piece of paper and his magic fluctuates too much during the casting process, he will get a compressed abstract paper ball. If the magic output is too fast and he imagines the production process of paper, then he will get a handful of broken wood. Liu Sen had a big idea and wondered if he would get a piece of carbon if he used the repair spell with all his might on a diamond. Liu Sen didn't dare to tell his father, otherwise with the other party's scientific enthusiasm, he would definitely immediately buy a big diamond back. Liu Sen was practicing the content of the beginner's magic textbook while Liu Guizhong tirelessly adjusted the instruments that were disturbed by magic. When Liu Sen practiced the lighting technique, fluorescent sparkling, which was so simple that it couldn't be any simpler, his father stopped and pondered. Are you saying that the light emitted from the tip of the wand is a form of internal magic transformation, or is it a spectrum of invisible light oscillated by magic to change its frequency into visible light? Liu Sen also has an exploratory spirit towards magic, and he has a big imagination. I'll try changing the magic output. Can you use an instrument to help me check it out? On the other hand, Julie and Liu Sen's Uncle Bell walked into Gringotts, accompanied by an elderly witch. Ahem. We need to exchange for Jean Jello. Julie said to the fairy who was focused on weighing Jean Jello. We still need a property transfer contract. Bell added. Half an hour later, the siblings sent the witch away and had 2 more property contracts in their hands. After whispering to Bell, Julie turned around and said to the cold and serious fairy again, we need to apply for a mortgage loan. After leaving for an hour, they returned to the Gringotts with a destitute middle-aged wizard. We need to transfer money. It was completely dark, and Liu Sen and his family only returned home. The table is filled with packaged meals and wizarding specialties purchased from Diagon Alley. Ah, I haven't had butterbeer for many years. It's still the taste from memory. Bell sighed after taking a sip of the beer with a strong malt aroma and a smooth taste. Uncle, when I was young, you told me that you had eaten chocolate that moves and fava beans that can breathe fire after finishing. Next time, let's go to Diagon Alley and look for them. Liu Sen looked forward to it. Bell vigorously rubbed Liu Sen's hair and his angry partner quickly avoided him. He took a sip of wine and said, Don't worry, Liu Senator, there are so many delicious and fun things in the magical world. You two leave me some crucible cakes. I'm starving. Julie. I'm too hungry. Liu Guizhong. Their answers were crisp and vague, with their mouths full of food. A few people were all starving, and Liu Sen and his son conducted a magic experiment in the hotel room for a whole day. Both of them gained a lot and were still discussing to continue the experiment in the basement without using magic later. Julie and Belle, on the other hand, started investing in the wizarding world using professional techniques. As of now, the two have purchased 7 shops and 6 residential properties under the name of Liu Senator. The two of them also plan to investigate and invest in some companies in the magical world after a period of time. The two of them applied for a large loan at Gringotts and reinvested it with the loan. Actually, it's not that the two of them don't have the funds on hand, it's more challenging like this. More profitable. The siblings abandoned by the wizarding family have been working in the financial industry in Muggle world for many years. Julie is an investment advisor for a large company, while Belle is even more impressive. He is a somewhat well-known investment banker in the industry. For many years, the two of them have never been satisfied with their desire for money. They use making money to gain a sense of achievement and security. Their resentment towards their family has never ceased, but there is no place to vent it. That magical world is like a mirror of water and moon, and the two people without magical talent cannot touch it at all. Now that Liu Sen has obtained the qualification to become a wizard, he reignites their deep-seated belief in resisting the injustice of fate. The siblings then started buying property and were confident in replicating the success of Muggle world into the magical world. Liu Sen, congratulations, you are a wealthy second generation. Julie swept the cake crumbs on her body and said. Haha mom. Keep a low profile. I'm not myself, am I? Liu Sen smiled. No, Liu Sen, this time, you are the second generation of the wealthy in the magical world. Uncle Bell How took out a stack of contracts horizontally and patted them on the table, saying. Liu Sen scanned them one by one and expressed his affirmation of their daily achievements. His uncle and mother's heroic actions were not repeated once or twice. Suddenly, he frowned and realized a key point, wait. Why are they all my names? Mom rewarded you. How much do you think? Julie. Uncle gave it to you, don't you want it? Belle. I want it. I want it as much as I want. Thank you, the two bosses. Liu Sen felt relieved in his heart, but it was not all because of small money, but, Dad. Look. The house in Diagon Alley. We don't need to rent a hotel to study. Professor Liu suddenly said happily, Great. I can bring all the experimental equipment over. There were still about 2 weeks left from school, and on that day, Liu Sen and his son did not go to Diagon Alley for scientific research. Instead, they were at home organizing their research notes and occasionally looking up at the sky. When did Uncle say it would arrive? Liu Sen couldn't help but ask. It should be fast. Liu Guizhong raised his hand and looked at his watch. The two of them looked up again and confirmed that there were no messengers like owls or pigeons flying towards their yard. When the two of them sat back in their chairs and began to explore the use of the lighting spell, a small falling sound came into the father and son's ears. The two turned their heads and saw a wooden sword stuck in the open space in the backyard. There is a small package the size of a palm tied to the hilt of the sword. Liu Sen took a few steps and spun around the wooden sword. This is a Chinese sword carved with Tai Chi and seal script, made of bamboo. Because Liu Sen saw bamboo joints on it, the craftsmanship was not very meticulous. The outer layer of the package is made of waterproof craft paper, and the sealing area is wrapped with yellow tape, giving Liu Sen a very pragmatic feeling. The sword was not deeply inserted into the ground, and there seemed to be a faint halo wrapped around it. Liu Sen gently touched it with his hand, feeling that the halo was as flexible as leather, not the kind of bubbles that would shatter with just one touch. After being touched by Liu Sen, the halo emitted a faint golden light, which flickered a few times before slowly dissipating. Once again, you can touch the bamboo sword. How does Huaxia transmit messages? It's much more powerful than an owl. Liu Sen excitedly said to his father. Liu Guizhong also approached excitedly and said, Your grandfather went early, and it's the first time I've seen him. Liu Sen handed his sword to his eager father and unpacked it himself to look through. I opened the craft paper and inside was a palm-sized vermilion lacquer wooden box with a yellow talisman pasted on it. It's the kind of yellow talisman in zombie movies. He quickly and lightly placed the box on the table, his whole body tactical leaning backwards. Liu Sen thought to himself, Uncle and Dad have a good relationship, and they even call each other during holidays and festivals. Shouldn't it harm him? Taking a glance at his father who signaled to continue opening, Liu Sen bravely quietly tore open a slit in the yellow talisman. Seeing no movement, he boldly uncovered the whole thing. The small box in vermilion paint trembled slightly without the yellow talisman, and then with a swoosh, it enlarged into a large wooden box about 1 meter long. It's a bit like a big box for bedding and clothes in rural China. That yellow talisman is actually used to compress space. Pick up the yellow talisman again and carefully examine it. Apart from the traditional shrink character at the top, I don't know what it is written about. It looks quite complicated with twists and turns, and I can still feel the fluctuation of magic on it. Putting away the talisman paper, Liu Sen eagerly rubbed his hands and opened the box. The box is obviously expanded through space, and there is also a universe inside. At the top, it appears to be a detachable compartment, containing many snacks, pastries, a letter, and a notebook. However, below it is a talisman paper, which is different from the outer layer. It can be seen but not touched. The space below was stuck with this talisman, and Liu Sen tried but couldn't open it. He opened the letter and it looked like it was written in a pen, with white paper and blue letters, and bold and powerful fonts. When Liu Sen silently read the text on the letter, a calm and loyal voice automatically sounded in his mind to read the content, indicating that a clever spell had been applied. The uncle's voice, which only Liu Sen could hear himself, said. My nephew Liu Sen, uncle has learned that you have been admitted to a magic school in the UK. Congratulations. We are all proud of you when we hear this news. Your grandfather was not lacking in talent back then, but he gave up practicing for the sake of national security. Your grandfather and his family deeply regretted but also praised him. Now that you have become a wizard, your lineage can be considered as returning to the realm of cultivation. It's also time to hand over some of the family's spells to you. I hope you can achieve success overseas and showcase Chinese magic to Westerners, showcasing my Chinese charm. Tell Uncle immediately if you have any problems or difficulties. Remember, China will always be your root, and our Liu family is your solid backing. In addition, the principal of Hogwarts has a good relationship with your great-grandfather. If you have any urgent matters, you can contact him first, and he should be able to take care of them. In the box are snacks and toys given to you by me, your second uncle, third aunt, and your older brothers and sisters of the same generation. The notes were written by your grandfather when he was a child, and they are quite basic. After you learn them, you can open the interlayer below. As for what's good, wait for you to discover it yourself. Liu Sen handed the letter to his father beside him and picked up his grandfather's notebook from the past. The cover was dark blue thick wax paper, like a martial arts secret script in a movie. It has very Eastern characteristics. Upon opening it, the characters are arranged vertically and are traditional Chinese characters written with a brush. Flipping back is like a simple pen figurine, it can still move. The painting depicts boxing and swordsmanship for physical fitness and strength, with notes on breathing techniques. Liu Sen noticed that the concept of qi was mentioned in his notes. The Yellow Emperor's inner canon states that qi is the origin of all things, and all things in the universe are composed of qi. The heavens create the three treasures of the sun, moon, and stars, while the earth produces the three treasures of water, fire, and wind. People cultivate the three treasures of essence, energy, and spirit. Chinese cultivators, formerly known as alchemists, believe that the unity of essence, qi, and spirit could transcend the mundane world. A strong body is the essence, breathing and practicing is the qi, and belief and thinking are the gods. The three complement each other, and when combined, they can summon magic, which is called magic in the West. Spell release is also different from Western magic. Western wizards need to use a wand to cast spells, along with correct spells, wand-waving movements, and casting beliefs, in order to cast spells successfully. Since ancient times, China has not been very particular about casting equipment, which can be used with fingers, palms, swords, runes, or any type of magic tool. There are various types of gourds, jade, and dust. Looking back, Liu Sen couldn't help but feel a little excited. It detailed the introduction and techniques of Liu's techniques, as well as the methods of casting talismans. After roughly flipping through his notes, Liu Sen sighed and said, "You still need to exercise to learn Chinese magic." Looking back at his father, Liu Sen smiled mischievously and said, "Come on, Professor Liu, let's start military training tomorrow." 2 weeks later, Liu Sen and his father's pace has become much lighter and faster than before. Since receiving his grandfather's cultivation notes, the father and son have supervised each other and spontaneously conducted arduous self-military training. Huaxia's techniques emphasize laying a solid foundation, practicing muscles, bones, and skin externally, and breathing internally. Good health is the key to the unity of essence, energy, and spirit. So as to condense the magic power. That is what the West calls magic. Liu Sen's father, Liu Guozhong, was pulled by his son to exercise together. Even though he had never shown any talent for magic, he also wanted to try and develop magic. In the words of scientist Liu himself, this is helpful for studying magic. Chapter 3. Hogwarts Train. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time flies until September 1st, with half an hour left until the train departs. Liu Sen and his family took a big turn at King's Cross Station. If it weren't for a senior classmate pushing an owl disappearing behind the wall, 9 3/4 the entrance to the platform is really uncertain. After all, it looks like there is a stone pillar between platform 9 and platform 10. Liu Sen waved goodbye to his parents who were seeing him off at the station, tightened his backpack, and then took a deep breath before crashing into the thick and magical wall between platforms 9 and 10. Behind the wall, there was a completely different scene. It was already 1991, but the train that was about to depart was still in the style of a steam locomotive. Of course, Liu Sen did not believe that the power behind this thing was high-pressure steam, let alone that there would be a train conductor hidden in the front of the train, covered in black ash and wielding a coal shovel. After all, this was a magical world. But this is still too backward. After all, one of the purposes of using trains to transport students to school is to hide it and not attract Muggles' attention. And a steam train speeding between the mountain and wilderness railways has gradually weakened its hidden role, even to the point of conflict. Liu Sen couldn't help but shake his head. The news and technology in the magic world are so closed and backward. Thick smoke billowed out from the locomotive, and the platform was filled with students and parents dragging heavy luggage. Compared to them, Liu Sen's luggage is incredibly simple. Just a backpack. He now has 2 space expansion equipment. One is a backpack on his shoulder, which is the size of 2 bedrooms inside. The other one is a school gift from the uncle of China, and the space inside is still unknown. We need to wait for Liu Sen to practice Liu's magic before we can open the internal space. It was still early, and many students had not boarded the train yet. So he walked back along the carriage and selected an empty one near the back of the train. Liu Sen put down his backpack, took out his grandfather's notes, flipped through a few pages, and put them back in his bag. During this period, Liu's martial arts have become familiar to his heart, and he fights his father more than 10 times every day. In the days leading up to the start of school, it caught the attention of the siblings Julie and Belle, and Liu Sen and his father worked as mentors for a few more days. The later introductory spells are similar to European magic, with varying degrees of convenience. Although Chinese magic does not require the use of a wand, in the early stages, one must practice drawing runes on paper. So at present, Liu Sen still focuses on school magic. When the essence and spirit become more solid and the magic in the body is more abundant, then study the advanced techniques of Huaxia. Flipping through his backpack, he originally wanted to take out his textbook, Standard Spells, Beginner, but he was extremely conflicted when he thought of his own wand. So he found an extracurricular book called Alchemy Material Science, which Liu Sen specifically found at the Lichen bookstore. He wanted to know if his wand had any salvation in terms of appearance. The beer bottle cap is so thick, the A4 paper is so long, and it's not too dark. In Ollivander's words, it's 12 inches long, and the lightning struck Peachwood staff with extremely high hardness. I can't help but want to throw it away. Does this look like a rolling pin? However, all the spells come with lightning effects, which is quite fragrant. At this moment, the door of the train compartment was pulled open. A thin boy poked his head in and asked in an uncertain tone, "Excuse me. Can I sit here?" "Of course, I'm the only one here." Liu Sen made room and helped the thin and weak boy put away his large suitcase and owl cage. "Brother with heavy luggage. But your owl is so beautiful. Did you buy it in Diagon Alley?" The boy was very happy when Liu Sen praised his owl, and instantly came to his senses. "Yes. That's great there, I love diagonals so much. But the owl wasn't bought by me, it was given to me by Hagrid. He's a Hogwarts ranger." Upon hearing this, Liu Sen realized why this person looked a bit familiar. Black hair, green eyes, wearing a pair of round glasses fixed with tape. Well, you can't be Harry, can you? This person is Harry Potter. Harry was taken aback. Although he had been recognized multiple times since entering the wizarding world, he was still a bit uncomfortable with everyone knowing him. He hurriedly stroked the bangs on his forehead, thinking that the lightning-shaped scar had exposed his identity. "Well, my name is Liu Sen, a freshman in first grade," Liu Sen introduced first. "Harry Potter, I'm also a new student this year," Harry quickly replied. Liu Sen thought to himself. "It's confirmed, the first year of the three little ones. Although I can't remember many details clearly, knowing what big events will happen in the next few years is still very advantageous. The two shook hands when the sound of family conversations came from outside the car window. The children have fiery red hair, and two of them are still twins. The four boys chattered goodbye to their mother and little sister, indicating that their home must also be very lively. Considering that Harry had not enjoyed the warmth of his family, Liu Sen did not disturb Harry, who was mesmerized by the sight. Liu Sen also listened for a while, and the Weasley family should have recognized Harry just now. At this moment, Mrs. Weasley said to the children by the train, "No wonder that child looks lonely. You can't look at his scars later. You can't ask what happened at that time. Did you hear me?" Harry didn't come to his senses until the train started and the figures of the mother and daughter who were seeing him off at the station disappeared. The topic returned to Diagon Alley, and as newcomers to the magical world, the two quickly and enthusiastically chatted together. In no time, the sliding door of the compartment was opened again, and a red-haired boy joined their compartment. He was the younger brother of the family just outside the car window. He introduced himself and said, "My name is Ron Weasley. Are you also freshmen?" Liu Sen had already recognized who this was and replied, "Yes, we are also in first grade. I am Liu Sen, and he is." Liu Sen gave the latter a look of encouragement. "Harry Potter, Harry Potter." As soon as the words fell, the twin brothers entered the compartment. "Hey, Ron. George and I need to walk in the middle carriage." "Hello Fred, did anyone just mention Harry Potter?" "Oh my goodness, could you really be?" They immediately saw the scars on Harry's forehead that were about to be covered, indicating that Harry's bangs had their own temper and were not willing to obediently cover the lightning bolt. Under the gaze of Ron and his twin brothers, Harry had no choice but to generously lift the bangs and let the three of them see clearly. These three have completely forgotten their mother's advice just now. Fred and George are a pair of lucky people. They have a strong understanding and enjoy mischievous behavior. They are skilled at creating a lively atmosphere and won't be quiet wherever they go, unless they are quietly causing trouble. Liu Sen has a good impression of them, or rather their family is very good. As a member of the Pure Blood 28 family, the Weasley family is really approachable. After the twins left, the carriage quieted down again. "You don't seem to be curious at all," Ron asked Liu Sr. "Curious about what?" Liu Sen puzzled. Ron naturally said, "Harry, he's Harry Potter. You hardly went to see that lightning-shaped scar just now." "Well, maybe because I was born into an ordinary world. I mean a Muggle family. I just heard about Harry a while ago. I'm not very familiar with him," Liu Sen thought for a moment and casually replied. This excites Ron immensely, and he can hardly wait to introduce Harry's legendary story. At this moment, Harry beside him said, "Do you have no wizards at all in your house?" Liu Sen said, There should be many wizards in my family in my hometown of China. But my dad is not a wizard. In fact, I only found out from receiving the admission letter that my dad is not telling stories to deceive me. My mom's situation is similar," Liu Sen said. "So your parents are all dumbbells?" "Oh, I'm sorry. But it's also pretty good, at least you're a wizard," Ron said straightforwardly. At this moment, Harry asked, "Ron, are your family all wizards?" Ron: "Yes, they are all wizards. But my mother has a distant cousin who is a mute canon, and we usually don't talk about him. He lives on Muggle's side and I heard he's an accountant." "Do Muggles have Gringotts?" Liu Sr., there are many banks that play the same role as the Gringotts. My uncle is a bank investor, and by the way, he is also a mute. After I was admitted, my family can go to the wizarding world with a legitimate name." Harry: "Cool, if only I had been exposed to the magical world earlier. I live with my uncle and aunt, and they don't tell me about the magical world." The three of them engaged in lively conversations about two worlds. Sometimes, it was Liu Sen and Harry who told Ron about life in the Muggle world, and Ron was stunned by the various details of ordinary people's lives. And more often than not, it was Liu Sen and Harry staring wide-eyed, listening to Ron recounting various common sense and observations about the magical world. The three of them are very temperamental, and topics keep popping up. Unconsciously, the train had already traveled to a field, and the whistle made a whimpering sound, combined with the clattering sound of the tracks, inexplicably making people feel happy. At this moment, the sound of a small cart came from outside the door. The salesperson opened the compartment door and asked in a friendly voice. "Children, do you want to buy anything to eat?" Ron's face turned a little red as he lifted a bag and shook it, feeling a bit embarrassed. "No need, Mom brought me a sandwich," he said, and Liu Sen looked at the dazzling array of snacks and commodities on the bus. He could not help but recall beer, baijiu, mineral water, roasted fish fillet with peanut and melon seeds. "Come on, lift your feet." In a daze, Harry had already pulled out a handful of golden jargon. It turned out that Harry couldn't understand the exchange rate in the wizarding world better than Liu Senator in the end. He only spent 11 silver coins and 7 copper coins to bring back a bunch of snacks. You know, he bought some of each. This price is quite touching. Liu Sen also bought a bunch, and he didn't need any money either. Under Ron's envious gaze, the two tycoons almost wrapped up the entire vehicle. After the empty cart left, Ron dejectedly took out his sandwich and said, "Mom always forgets that I don't like canned salted beef." Harry generously took out a box of pumpkin pies and handed it to Ron and Liu Sr. "I bought too many, let's eat it in a different way." Liu Sen rudely took a pie and tasted it, and it tasted surprisingly good. "Ron, I'll trade a hamburger for your sandwich." Liu Sen brought a hamburger and a whole family bucket. He thought it was safer to bring some snacks on the train in advance, and the Muggle food wizards must have never tasted it before, just for future classmates to taste. "You won't like it, it's too dry. My mother is too busy, she has to take care of our whole family." Ron blushed again and gratefully accepted the delicious food handed over by the two. The three of them were very happy to eat, and Harry rarely had fried chicken and hamburgers before. After all, the delicious food was exclusive to his cousin Dolly, and he would be good if he could taste a French fries on a regular basis. Ron filled his mouth with fried food and exclaimed, "I didn't expect Muggle food to be so delicious." "Harry, do you also eat this every day?" He vaguely introduced the picture inside the chocolate frog to Harry and Liu Sen. The three of them were eating, drinking, and enjoying themselves on the train. At this moment, the compartment door was knocked on, and it was Neville. A shy round-faced boy searched for his toad in each compartment, and the forgetful child burst into tears. Liu Sen has some impression of him. Among the actors in the movie version, except for a certain academic genius who has always been responsible for appearance, the rest of the male lead and supporting roles have a full-length disability. Only this Neville has made a comeback all the way, and as he grows up, he seems to have changed his face. And the same goes for the plot. When I was a child, I couldn't do anything, but it changed a lot in the later stages. Liu Sen wanted to help Neville, but he really didn't know where the toad was hiding. I wanted to use the flying curse, but it was a senior spell that Liu Sen had not yet self-taught. Just as Neville turned around with tears in his eyes to leave, Liu Sen stopped him. "Neville, the flying curse can help you find the toad." Newton looked at Liu Sen with anticipation. "But I don't know." Neville lowered his head again with a mournful expression. Liu Sen smiled and looked at Ron. Ron was taken aback and said, "I don't even know how to do it. That's a spell that only comes from a senior grade, it's very difficult. My brother practiced it during the vacation." When Newton saw Venus in his eyes, he looked expectant. Ron furrowed his eyebrows together and hesitated for a moment before saying, all right. I'll take you to my brother Percy, but don't expect him to help. He always puts on a bad face." Liu Sen took out a large bucket of chicken rice flowers and gave it to Ron, saying, "I'll accompany you. He's a supervisor, and maybe he would be happy to help lower-grade students. I also want to see what the flying curse looks like." Ron had some delicious food and suddenly gained motivation, so he walked towards the front of the carriage while eating. There was a designated rest carriage for the supervisor. Their carriage was quite far back and they walked a long way to find Percy. He is discussing his life ideals with a pretty female supervisor. Percy, who was interrupted, appeared very impatient, but faced the opportunity to showcase himself. He still cast the flying curse to save face. The toad is flying. About 10 seconds later, a toad flew from a corner to Percy's hand. "You're lucky, this is the only toad on the entire train." "Raffles. This is my Raffles." Neville was devastated and quickly hugged his pet tightly in his arms. "Beautiful flying curse. Senior is really amazing." Liu Sen applauded. Percy is a dogmatic person, but his essence is not bad. Proper praise is more effective than anything else. Percy's face flushed and he tried his best not to show too much pride. Like the leader who had just finished speaking, he nodded slightly to the few people with his hands behind his back. Neville's grateful gaze and Liu Sen's praise were very pleasing to Percy, and even his foolish younger brother was quite pleasing to the eye. Before leaving, Liu Sen invited Percy and his wife to their carriage as Ron's new friend to enjoy delicious food together. However, they were politely refused, and Liu Sen handed Percy 2 bottles of fatty happy water. This is a beverage that Muggles love very much. It can be considered a local specialty of Muggles, and senior students must try it. By the way, I heard that your father, Mr. Weasley, is an official of the Ministry of Magic and has always been committed to protecting Muggles. If there is a chance, I really want to visit. We will definitely have many topics to discuss. After some courtesy, Liu Sen and his companions bid farewell to Percy and the female supervisor named Penelope, and returned to their own carriage. With a silly smile, Neville hugged the lost and regained toad and was pulled back into the carriage by Liu Sen to eat. After a few people got to know each other, Ron said, "Neville, I don't even know what makes you cry. If I had a toad, I would have loved to throw it away sooner. Toads are no longer popular now." After he finished speaking, he took out his pet mouse and said, "This is Spot, my brother Percy doesn't want it. Although it knows to sleep in every day, and it also loses hair and fingers, if it gets lost. Well, I will also look for it, but I won't be as anxious as you. Spot is already very old, and if one day he doesn't move, it's normal." Liu Sen stared at the ugly mouse and pondered for a long time. It seemed as if this thing was a plot, human thing. That's right, this guy is very impressive. This is what an old man has changed. And he's the kind of despicable and shameless person who betrays his brothers. Do you want to do something? Ron shook his hand in front of Liu Sen and said, "Hey buddy, what are you thinking? You're laughing strangely." Liu Sen finally came to his senses and said, "Oh, it's nothing. I was thinking. We might need to change into robes, you guys talk first." After finishing speaking, he plunged into his backpack and followed the internal ladder into the expansion space. Chapter 4. What is the blessing of a horse? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ron. You'll be surprised when you come back. After speaking, he pulled out his somewhat worn wand and planned to perform a spell. Change the color of the spot. At this moment, the door was opened again. Which of you saw Neville's toad? Oh Neville. You have found the toad. The speaker was a little girl with thick brown hair, and her tone was a bit arrogant, feeling like she was the kind of student council president. Neville panicked and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, thank you Hermione. We just asked Ron's brother to help us find it. He used a spell, and Lifu flew over." Liu Sen had just changed his robe and when he heard the conversation above, he suddenly became energized. Thinking to myself, that's great. Hermione, the person in charge of appearance, is here. I took out a mirror from my suitcase and tidied up my hairstyle and collar in a few seconds. Liu Sen quickly climbed up the ladder in his backpack and showed a friendly smile, ready to leave a good impression on the class flower. He slowly climbed up the ladder, and as soon as he reached out half of his body, he saw Hermione turning her head to look over. She had a slight freckle, but her side face was young and pure under the sunlight. Her mischievous brown hair ran over her face and was casually caressed by her fingers, wrapped behind her ears. Liu Sen felt that the faint freckles on the girl's face were also quite beautiful for the first time. With this moment of distraction, Liu Sen slipped and fell back to the bottom of his backpack. A few seconds later, he crawled back and quickly introduced himself. "Hi. Sunny Beauty. My name is Liu Senator. I saw your profile just now and it seems like I've seen it somewhere before." Under the admiring gaze of Harry, Ron, and Neville, Liu Sen jumped out of his backpack without blushing or jumping. He didn't forget to tidy up his clothes and smiled, as if it wasn't him who had slipped on his feet just now. The little girl was not moved by Liu Sen's cinematic approach, just smiled, and then curiously glanced at Liu Sen's backpack. "It's a good expansion backpack. After I learn the stretching mantra, I'll make one myself." Then he looked arrogantly at Ron and continued, "Oh. Are you trying to show off magic? Then let's open our eyes." After speaking, he sat down on his own and gestured for Ron to continue. Ron's eyes were complex as he glanced at Liu Sen, as if saying, "Go, brother. Manage your girl. I can't continue playing." Liu Sen seemed to smile rather than smile. He didn't want to miss the scene arranged by the hit, so he pretended not to see it and gave a cheering look. "Come on, Ron. Don't be cowardly." Ron had no choice but to grit his head and continue. He coughed lightly and pointed his second-hand wand, which was tattered and had paint peeling off and the unicorn tail hair leaking out, at the spot. "Daisies, sweet cream, and sunshine, turn this silly fat mouse yellow." He shouted and waved his wand, but nothing happened. "The spots are still gray, and I even rolled over in my sleep." Hermione couldn't help but sneer and said, "Are you sure you're reciting a spell? The effect isn't very good. When I was at home, I self-taught a few simple spells and all of them were successful. I also self-taught a first-grade textbook and memorized them all. I was an excellent student since I was young, and when I received the Tongji book, I was extremely happy. Finally, I could learn more challenging things. After previewing the textbook, I bought many reference books and read them all during the vacation. Finally, it's time for the start of school. My name is Hermione Granger, what are your names?" Harry and Ron were surprised by the other party's barrage of speeches and the feat of memorizing all the textbooks in advance, but Liu Sen didn't feel much. First of all, he knows who this is, the wisdom and responsibility of the three little ones, and the future Miss Knowledger. She endorses that as a basic skill. Although Liu Sen also previewed so much. One throw, 95%, not much. I have also previewed billions of points, so I can communicate more in the future. Liu Sen interjected. Hermione remained non-committal and turned her head away. This girl is a bit cold. Liu Sen thought to himself. I am Ron Weasley, Harry Potter, without any surprise. Miss Knowledger, who came from a Muggle background but knew about Harry, was surprised when she saw Harrington. But after all, I didn't grow up in a wizarding family, and the surprise passed quickly. Her attention returned to the mouse in Ron's hand. She also wanted to show off. Hermione took out her wand from her pocket and proficiently recited the spell. As she said, she had really finished self-learning simple magic, and the spots turned red in an instant. This has already touched the beginner level of shapeshifting. Ordinary first-grade students may need 6 months to become proficient in using it. She swung her hair backwards, unable to conceal her pride, and looked at Ron with a teasing look. She turned the spotted hair into the color of Ron's hair. After finishing, Hermione giggled arrogantly again, and even glanced provocatively at Liu Sen and the wand exposed from his waist. Laughing even more happily. How unreasonable. Liu Sen's anger suddenly rose, and the girl was a bit upset. She can't look at people with a straight eye without showing off her skills. Besides, you dare to bully my brother in person. He took out a rolling pin from his arms, glared at Hermione, and then quickly recited a spell. When the last word is spoken, a dazzling lightning bolt bursts out from the top of the wand. After the fleeting light, spots woke up from their sleep and almost jumped out of Ron's hand. Ron thought Liu Sen had pronounced the wrong spell. How could he feel like he was going to kill the spot? But in the next moment, the spotted body suddenly changed from red to brown, and the hair instantly soared. The spot suddenly turned into a ball of fur, and Ron's short limbs couldn't even reach his hand. A few people took a closer look and found that the spots were now dark brown in color, with long, dense, and slightly curly fur. If it were Hermione holding it in her hand, no one would suspect that it was a clump of hair she had cut. Harry and Ron instantly burst into laughter. Even the honest Neville couldn't help but cover his mouth and laugh out a pig's cry. Hermione was instantly covered in anger by this scene and fled, running out of a carriage. A few people could still hear her sobbing. Ha ha ha. Is that it? Hermione, let's practice magic together next time. Liu Sen laughed. Proud of helping Ron regain a game, but to his surprise, the three of them who had just burst into laughter looked straight at his wand. Liu Senator, I'm sorry. Exposed. Half an hour later, there were exclamations from Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville in the compartment. Ron. Cool. You've learned even the floating curse. Hermione. Humph. The amplitude of hand shaking is too small, otherwise the effect would be even better. Harry. But the key is, even this spell comes with lightning. It's so beautiful. Can I do it in the future? After Hermione was angry and crying, Liu Sen hesitated for a moment and quickly chased after her. He's not stupid. Making a girl cry and not caring about it, Liu Sen still made mistakes after graduating from college in his previous life. So he was single for a long, long time. Now, hee. Harry, Ron, Neville. Blessings and difficulties together. Let's go. Liu Sen took the initiative to admit his mistake, and the four of them spoke eloquently. Only then did Hermione finally stop crying. Liu Sen thought to himself. A sin, a sin. Why do I owe so much? She's just a child. If she wants to show off her skills, just let her do it. In the future, if she wants to be first, I will definitely only be second. Inviting Hermione back into the compartment, he took out his absurdly ugly wand, which made the other person burst into tears and laugh. Liu Sen, who spared no effort, introduced the origin and characteristics of his wand. He also performed a few small magic tricks. Mainly to show everyone the lightning special effects, really amazing. By the way, Hermione, what is the key point of the repair spell? I always can't find any feeling. Liu Sen silently gave himself a big thumbs up in his heart for the opportunity he deliberately showed the other party. Cough cough, you haven't learned such a simple spell, it's a waste of your wand. Remember. Hermione tried her best to conceal the smile on her face and overwhelmed Liu Sen with knowledge, making her feel very happy. Great Hermione. Learning magic really requires communicating with experts to make progress. Actually, it's okay too. Reading more and thinking more is still very helpful. Liu Sen saw Hermione's cheeks slightly red and felt that she no longer blamed him, so he continued to search for the casting target in the compartment. Hey Harry, I almost forgot. Shouldn't your glasses be repaired now? Harry's glasses were wrapped in tape, but when he heard Liu Sen's words, he hurriedly planned to take them off. Wait. Your wand carries lightning. I think I'll still. Before he could finish speaking, Liu Sen's repair spell had already been recited and shot out from the rolling pin wand. It was really a shot, with an arc that accurately landed on Harry's glasses. Faced with lightning striking the bridge of the nose, who wouldn't panic? Harry's mouth opened wide in fear. Half a chocolate frog jumped out of its mouth. After Harry took a few breaths and took off his glasses, he found that the glasses, which had been broken into several sections and wrapped with tape, had taken on a completely new look, with no visible signs of breakage. It's amazing. Thank you, Liu Sen, but could you please let me know in advance next time? Harry exclaimed in shock. Ron also laughed at this moment, or in other words, let out a pig's cry. His mouth was filled with long strips of soft candy and chocolate frogs, making it difficult for him to speak. Hermione shook her head helplessly and said, "Can't you eat less sugar? Do you know how many boys and girls your age need root canal treatment for cavities every year?" Harry and Ron have only a partial understanding of this dental knowledge, while the other cannot understand it at all. Hermione shook her head and looked at the sky outside the train. She calculated the time and said, "I'll go out and get some air. You'd better change into your robes quickly to avoid being late for a while." Liu Sen said at this moment, root canal therapy is a very painful dental treatment plan that can save more severe cavities. Additionally, you can change clothes in my backpack, there's plenty of space. He smiled and gestured for Hermione not to avoid it. Harry and the others hesitated for a moment, then took out their robes and lined up to enter Liu Sen's expanded backpack. During the gap between changing clothes, Hermione unexpectedly asked, "Do you actually know that treatment method? When I was a child, it could be considered that my teeth weren't very good. And you, besides magic, actually knew dental knowledge?" Liu Sen asked knowingly. "My parents are dentists." "So, you were also born into a Muggle family?" "I mean an ordinary family," Hermione said. "It's similar, I've never seen a wizard since I was young. My grandfather learned Eastern magic when he was young, but my dad didn't know it," Liu Sen replied. At this moment, Harry and the others changed into wizard robes and gradually walked out of their backpacks, so Liu Sen talked about. "Harry also grew up in a Muggle family, right Harry?" "Oh, yes, I live at my aunt and uncle's house, and their whole family is Muggles," Harry said calmly. "But Ron is a pure wizard family, you can ask him anything you want to know." Liu Sen looked at Ron again. "That's right, my family is all wizards, my parents and my 5 brothers. My dad works in the Ministry of Magic and prohibits the misuse of Muggle items. He really likes Muggles." Several people completely abandoned their past grievances and found a common topic. Liu Sen sometimes takes a look at Neville, but this child's presence is too low. "By the way, how do you practice magic at home? Aren't you afraid of the Ministry of Magic's ban?" Liu Sen suddenly thought of this question that he was very concerned about. Hermione looked at the partition door with a surprised expression and whispered, "At first, I didn't know about this ban. After buying a wand and a book, I couldn't wait to learn at home. When I flipped through the History of Modern Magic, I found out about the regulations issued by the Ministry of Magic that restrict the use of magic by young wizards outside of school. I was scared at the time. It should have been mentioned during the teacher's home visit, but we were all too shocked and forgot about it. We occasionally use a few small magic tricks at home, but we have to carry them behind our parents' backs," Ron said. Hermione tried to curl her long hair behind her ear, but her hair had its own temper, curled up and looking a bit messy. Liu Sen found it quite interesting, but at this point, Hermione didn't pay much attention to her image. She allowed her hair to scatter on both sides, just to keep it out of sight. She looked at Ron enviously and said, "Our Muggle children are not so casual." I waited anxiously for 3 days, staring out the window at the owl waiting for the Ministry of Magic every day. But unexpectedly, I found out that my neighbor's grandmother was actually a wizard. I always thought they were pastry makers. I accidentally saw her secretly pruning branches with a wand. And she seemed to know that I was accepted and even greeted me, Hermione said happily. Liu Sen smiled and said, "Wow, you're so lucky. If your neighbor has a wizard, the Ministry of Magic won't directly determine that some small magic is being cast by you, unless they pick up your wand and perform a flashback spell. Shoo. Hermione gave a sly smile, and the group quickly glanced at the partition door, confirming that there was no one, and then exchanged a smile. However, the calmness was quickly shattered, and a few people were chatting when the compartment door suddenly opened and 3 people walked in. The boy in the middle had a pale complexion and a face full of arrogance. Unlike the arrogance brought by Hermione's academic arrogance, this person has a mysterious confidence that no one has his nobility, with disdainful eyes and nostrils looking around. He was accompanied by 2 strong-bodied guys, like his close bodyguards, but unfortunately he didn't look very smart. The pale-faced boy glanced at Liu Sen and Hermione, then looked contemptuously at Ron's red hair and old robe, and snorted without shaving. As he turned to Harry Potter, he happened to see his scar with nowhere to hide, so the boy spoke up and said, "It seems the rumor is true. Are you Harry Potter?" "I'm Draco Malfoy, from the noble 28 purebred family." "You know what? Some unscrupulous people are better off staying away, as they will be affected." Malfoy then provocatively glanced at Ron. Ron's face turned red when he was angry, and he clenched his fist. If it weren't for Harry and Neville pressing him, he would have rushed forward. Harry saw that both Liu Sen and Hermione looked at Malfoy with a bad expression on their faces. He immediately felt confident and said coldly to Malfoy, "We don't welcome you here, hurry up and leave. I can distinguish which people are no 3 no 4. Malfoy sneered, "We don't intend to leave. You have so much to eat, why don't you try one piece?" Then they went to grab candy and dim sum from the seats. "Ha ha ha, is it a beggar who can't eat enough? Everyone, come and take a look." Liu Sen deliberately laughed loudly. Several nearby compartments heard the excitement and opened the doors to look over here. Malfoy was taken aback when he heard these words, threw down the sugar in his hand, and angrily said, "What do you mean, do you want to fight?" Malfoy is a detestable pure-blooded person, with a good face, a love for taking advantage of small things, and a tendency to bully the weak and fear the hard. Thinking of these, Liu Sen plans to educate him well. Fighting. How could it be? We are all freshmen and should help each other. Are you hungry? There is still a lot of leftover food here, don't be polite. Chicken bones and leftover pies can be given to you. Speaking, Liu Sen pointed to the whole family bucket paper box on the ground, which was full of garbage. Ignoring Malfoy's angry face, he continued, TSK, can't it be, can't it? You drool when you see chicken bones. This is Muggle food. Ma Juanfu, how long haven't you had enough to eat? Malfoy was extremely angry, and no one had ever mocked him like this, let alone the fact that he didn't appear to be pure blood. Feeling waves of giggles and discussions coming from outside the corridor of the carriage behind him, Malfoy immediately became furious. My name is Draco Malfoy. My dad is a senior member of the Ministry of Magic and a Hogwarts board member. Who are you? Report your name. He pulled out his wand and was eager to try. What's going on? Do you want to explore magic? A hungry horse picking up food. A beggar picking up chicken bones. Liu Sen exploded Malfoy's anger with just a few casual words. In terms of ridicule, these 11-year-old chicks are no match at all. Just as Malfoy was about to cast the curse, Liu Sen also took out his wand. The other party was noticeably stunned when they saw the rolling pin. At this moment, Liu Sen's spell had been softly released. Fluorescence shining. Under the special effects of the rolling wand, and the techniques developed by Liu Sen and his son, a dark purple lightning flame of 1 meter long was triggered at the front end of the wand, condensing and not dispersing. I don't know which Muggle-born young wizard was watching, but upon seeing this scene, he exclaimed in surprise, "Lightsaber. It's lightsaber. He's a Jedi." Liu Sen almost dodged to his waist and almost let go of the rolling pin and wand. Without showing any signs, Liu Sen regained his rolling pin and, under the dim purple, thunder flame light sword, his face was unpredictable, giving Malfoy a somewhat eerie feeling. The thunder flame lightsaber is full of intimidation, and what's even more cool than the Star Wars lightsaber is that the lightning on the sword is swirling, occasionally making a sizzling arc sound. Upon closer inspection, countless thunderbolts surge, and no one dares to directly touch its edge. Liu Sen moved the tip of his sword to the empty can on the ground, just lightly sweeping it. The can was suddenly cut open with a red crack, and the wisps of smoke were burned again by the leaked arc, disappearing invisibly. The sword raised its head and pointed diagonally at Malfoy, who quickly retreated, afraid of being touched by the thunder flame light sword. He was in a dilemma with his two classmates watching, but he still put down his harsh words and said, "You're amazing this time. We'll see." Just as he was about to leave, one of the attendants suddenly let out a scream and was bitten by a dark brown-haired monster on his hand. "Spots!" Ron shouted. "That is the spot where the transformation spell has not expired. Well done, little dwarf. I have decided not to poison you for now." Liu Sen thought to himself. The farce soon came to an end, and Malfoy and his group fled in despair. And the classmates in the other carriages were attracted to Liu Sen's thunder flame lightsaber and Ron's furry mouse, and watched for a long time. The crowd only dispersed when the train slowed down and was about to arrive at the station. "That's so cool. What kind of magic is that?" Ron closed the compartment door and asked eagerly. "Oh, it's just a simple change in lighting techniques." Harry, Ron, Hermione, and even Neville, who had a low sense of presence, were deeply contemptuous in their eyes. "Who are you teasing? That's lighting technique." At the strong request of several people, Liu Sen pronounced a fluorescent sparkle with straight and round words. "Merlin in your hand. What an illumination technique. Can fluorescence shine like this? How could this be possible?" Ron exclaimed in surprise. Harry and Neville couldn't believe it, but neither of them doubted life more than Hermione. Number 34, it's just that the pronunciation and ending are different from the standard lighting mantra, and the amplitude of the movements is different. The effect should not be so outrageous. Number 34, the academic girl became more and more angry as she thought about it. She snatched Liu Sen's rolling pin and quickly recited a curse. "Wait. ZZ. Pop pop. Ah 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 ah." Hermione felt like she was touching high-voltage electricity, and her entire bones were faintly visible under the intense electric shock. In just 1 second, Hermione shook her legs and threw away her wand, coughing twice and spitting out a black smoke. If it weren't for Harry and Ron's timely support, the elementary school bully would have been sitting on the ground all over. Hermione stared blankly at the ceiling, silently shedding tears and not understanding what had happened. Liu Sen regained his senses and helplessly placed his hand on his forehead, saying, "My wand can't be forcefully snatched. And it's not easy to control. That's it, and the newly established good impression can be considered ruined." Chapter 5. What to think about when dividing hospitals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although taking advantage of Hermione's lack of calmness, Liu Sen quickly restored her clothes with a new cleaning spell and thoughtfully transformed her messy and naturally curled hair into smooth and flowing straight hair. Miss Everything, who had been electrocuted, still frequently threw her white eyes at Liu Sr. Liu Sen was very helpless and had to focus on experiencing the small boat journey from Hogwarts Station to Hogwarts. The swaying small boat carried first-year students across the Black Lake, and from a distance, they could see the towering Hogwarts castle. All the new students were attracted by the castle, and the thought of attending such a beautiful and mysterious school in the future filled everyone with anticipation. "Lower your head, pay attention to your head," Hagrid warned loudly in the darkness. However, the little wizards lowered their heads and walked through the trees above them, only to realize that even if they stood on the boat and jumped, they would not knock their heads. After getting off the small boat, Hagrid led the freshmen up the winding steps and handed the panting children over to Vice Principal McGonagall, who came to greet them. At this moment, Professor McGonagall told the little wizards that the separation ceremony was about to begin, and introduced the situation of the 4 colleges. Hogwarts was founded by 4 founders, Gryffindor, Hitchpatch, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin, and established 4 colleges under their names, each symbolized by a lion, badger, eagle, and snake. The branch ceremony is to decide which college to study in the next 7 years and jointly strive for the maximum credits for the college to obtain the college cup. The characteristics of the 4 colleges are different, just like the mascots. Slytherin's snake represents pure blood and power, Gryffindor's lion represents integrity and courage, Ravenclaw's eagle represents wisdom and knowledge, Hufflepuff's badgers represent diligence and loyalty, but in reality, they are quite awkward and usually choose the remaining children. However, to Liu Sen's knowledge, in fact, Dumbledore himself believed that the division of these colleges was too arbitrary, not only labeling children too early, but also dividing the wizarding community, causing the already small wizards to oppose each other. Especially Slytherin and Gryffindor, who are notorious for not dealing with each other. After listening to Professor McGonagall's introduction, the little wizards appeared a bit nervous. Before entering school, they were all intimidated by various bizarre branch selection methods used by their families, which seemed to be a small tradition. The little wizards who were deceived were now very frightened. For example, Ron, none of his 5 brothers told him how to divide the college, thinking that he had to fight monsters in public to determine the ownership of the college. Liu Sen is not worried about monsters, he is worried about the ability of the Sorting Hat to read his heart. If his identity is exposed, it is unknown whether this time-traveling party, hidden among the crowd, will be locked in a glass jar by the Department of Mysteries of the Ministry of Magic, with a label attached. Slice of unknown time and space smugglers. In order to cope with such an extreme tragedy, Liu Sen prepared several plans at home. Although he didn't know if he could hide from the Sorting Hat, Liu Sen had to grit his teeth in order to enter the magical world. After the branch session began, the little wizards breathed a sigh of relief. There was no need to fight monsters or memorize the thick history of magic in public. The branch only needed to wear an old magic hat that could speak. The little wizards didn't panic anymore, but Liu Sen panicked a lot. After waiting for the young wizards to queue up and put on their sorting hats and distribute to their respective colleges, Professor McGonagall finally shouted. "Mr. Liu Sen, you are the last one. Don't be nervous, sit over." Liu Sen took a deep breath and quietly put away the rolling pin from his loose robe, silently initiating a plan in his heart. Looking back at Harry, Ron, and Neville, who were already sitting in the Gryffindor seat waving and cheering on him, Liu Sen resolutely sat down on the chair and was wearing the dirty and singing terrible old hat. Liu Sen first gave himself a psychological suggestion in advance: I like reading novels, traveling through novels, science fiction novels, imagining myself as the protagonist, traveling through time and space, fighting against evil dragons alone, eating delicious food in Hobbit Village, catching magical treasures in Huiying Village, and gathering 7 Dragon Balls on the Great Voyage to make a wish to become Superman. How could this mess come about and cover up the identity of the traveler? At the same time, let the wand release an electric current, prick the palm, and use pain to clear the brain, further interfering with heart rate and brain waves. Then I recalled the magic history textbooks I had previewed and the key points for beginner magic spells in my heart. I tried to make the Sorting Hat see my wisdom and eagerness to learn. Yes, Liu Sen's plan is to join Ravenclaw, who is full of bookworms. This is a more secure plan. After all, showcasing one's inner talent is much simpler than showcasing bravery. Just endorse it. It's quite difficult to show bravery. Can we let the branch see how they play with Malfoy? Finally, for the sake of safety, Liu Sen deliberately swallowed his saliva and imagined what kind of delicacies would appear at the banquet later, such as chicken legs, potatoes, pumpkin juice. Well, the style of British cuisine differs from that of China by 100 or 8,000 miles, but it indicates that on the side of foodies, there should be a Hufflepuff. This strategy is used to ensure safety. As the last student in the branch, Liu Sen still attracted a lot of attention. Under the gaze of numerous teachers and young wizards, the Sorting Hat revealed complex expressions with its dirty and tattered wrinkled mouth and eyes. A voice that only he could hear suddenly rang out in Liu Sen's mind. Wow, you are the little wizard who has added the most acting to yourself in 100 years. Ha ha ha. Liu Sen suddenly broke into a cold sweat, thinking to himself that it was terrible and exposed. Will they be expelled from school or sent for slicing? If I were to hold on to the branch hat, I don't know if I could have a success rate of 10% in escaping. It's over, it's over. Don't worry, little one. For thousands of years, I have seen countless little wizards with secrets in their hearts, but please rest assured that I possess the wisdom and heart of 4 great wizards. I don't care about your background, let alone tell anyone. Liu Sen felt a little relieved, as this was actually part of his deduction, but the expected probability was very low. Thank you for your tolerance and understanding. My little secret is not worth mentioning. I believe you must have met many people with a special past like me, right? Liu Sen's heart moved and he planned to ask if there were any other travelers. But the branch hat is very strict. Oh, no, 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 every child is unique. Who can say it clearly? I think we should assign you to a suitable college as soon as possible, child. That's great, Mr. Branch Hat. Could you please? After a brief silence, Liu Sen asked in confusion, how about it? Which hospital do you think is more suitable for me to go to? I won't choose. The Sorting Hat chuckled lightly and said, are you indeed? Smart child, there is no doubt that you are not lacking in wisdom. Ravenclaw can make you many like-minded companions. But don't forget, you also have ancient wizard family lineage in your body. Slytherin can help you achieve your ambitions faster. Towards glory. As for greed, who is not greedy? Hufflepuff will not refuse you, such an excellent little wizard, you can become the best among them. There is no doubt about this. Hee, thank you for your compliment. I can't hide anything from your clever mind. I think anything is fine, Ravenclaw. But before Liu Sen could make a choice, the Sorting Hat interrupted him and continued, what sets you apart and most valuable is not your wisdom, bloodline, or anything else, but... Liu Sen's eyes lit up and he said, but instead. It's a brave child. What determines a person's success is their precious qualities hidden in their heart. Did you see the courage of me to fight against bullying academic bullies without fear of power? Or did you see me conducting dangerous magical technology experiments in pursuit of truth without fear of the Ministry of Magic's ban? Or did you see my decision to invest in junk companies with all my might when I was a child? Or... Before Liu Sen could continue to embellish himself in various ways, the Sorting Hat could no longer bear it. Pooh, you shameless and stinky person. It's rare to hear such beautiful things about fights, tinkering, and opportunism. Cough, this is all prejudice. Where did I fight? It was just self-defense. We were really weak, helpless, and pitiful at that time. Alright, let's not talk about that anymore. How dare you make up lies and make small moves to deceive the smartest magical creations in the world? This is really brave. Oh, I remember you just wanted to hold me hostage and run away. You're so fearless. I think Gryffindor is perfect for you. Although Liu Sen was envious of Gryffindor, it was the most difficult task for Gryffindor to achieve in the plan. At this moment, he was as happy as winning the lottery. Gryffindor. Accompanied by the branch hat shouting out the name of the college, teachers and classmates applauded for the end of the branch ceremony. After thanking the branch hat, Liu Sen walked happily to the Gryffindor dining table and sat next to Neville. The 3 little ones were all in adjacent positions, and Harry and Ron happily greeted him, feeling happy to be assigned to the same college. At this moment, an old man wearing a starry robe and a long silver beard stood in the center of the teacher's seat. Principal Albus Dumbledore. He opened his arms to welcome the students, and his eyes seemed to be filled with kindness. Welcome everyone to Hogwarts to start a new academic year. Before the banquet starts, I would like to say a few words. That is, stupid, crying, residual, twisting. Thank you all. The students inexplicably applauded fiercely, and for the first time, lower grade students exchanged their eyes in confusion when they saw such a strange speech. Dumbledore sat back in his chair, snapped his fingers, and a dazzling array of food appeared on the dining table. Liu Sen was also a bit confused, as he was still recalling Dumbledore's brief yet extreme opening speech. This was something that Liu Sen had never seen in his previous life. At that time, the school leaders gave a speech for at least half an hour to lay a foundation. No matter whether the students below are trembling in the rain or in the cold wind, the school leaders never care about the lives of the students. That's it. What do you mean? Liu Sen asked with a question mark all over his head. Many freshmen are also completely confused, such as Harry. Is he a bit crazy? At this moment, Percy across from them whispered, "What? He's a genius. The greatest Hogwarts principal in history. The best wizard in the world. But it's a bit crazy. Do you want some potatoes?" Harry only then noticed the food on the plate, and the child who had not eaten enough since childhood suddenly came to heaven. Liu Sen didn't pay much attention to these grilled sausages, grilled potatoes, fried steak, and grilled chicken legs. This dish is okay, it's quite generous, but what the hell is a big plate of mint and hard candy mixed in? He nibbled on the pork ribs and asked Percy, "Senior, what did the principal mean just now?" Harry also slowed down his chewing speed and turned to look over. Percy swallowed the potato and took a sip of pumpkin juice, saying, "There are many ways. Some say it's a blessing from Latin magic, while others say it's a complex riddle. But that's not reliable, it's actually very simple." Percy looked around, and although Ron didn't stop gnawing on the chicken legs, he also looked curiously at the supervising third brother. Hermione frowned and pondered whether there was any relevant record in the Hogwarts school history. A few little wizards in the distance also leaned over and listened attentively. Percy really likes this feeling, he continued. Stupid, crying, scumbag, and twisted are the impressions or opinions of students from the 4 colleges towards other colleges. For example, the Eagles and Ravenclaw think they are the smartest and see who they are. Fool. Hermione suddenly realized. Percy nodded and said, "That's right. Got it. The arrogant Slytherin thinks that not pure blood is just residue, hee. Simo Finnegan, who was next to him, also participated in the conversation. Our lion house would think that other students are cowardly crying ghosts. Bingo. You understand now. This was privately researched by our supervising students. The principal is joking with us, it can bring the colleges closer together." Percy finished speaking and happily took a bite of sausage. "How do you say that?" Ron asked vaguely, his mouth full of sausages and pies. Percy shook her head lightly as she was about to speak. The twin brothers next to him followed Percy's tone and took the conversation in unison. "Fred. My foolish little brother. George. Let our knowledgeable and wise supervisor brother tell you. Fred. Take out your notes. The next words from the supervisor will be the key. George. Oh wait, when did our Percy become a supervisor? Has he ever said that? Fred. Of course, but only once at a specific time. George. I remember. Really. Whenever the hour and minute hands converge, say it once. Ha ha ha. Fred. Ha ha ha. The twins clapped their hands in tacit agreement and flexibly avoided a hard candy thrown by Percy. Ron frowned and turned to look at Liu Sen. They're just like this at home, I didn't expect it to be like this at school. But what's going on with twisting? Of course, Liu Sen knew about their family's situation, and Ron also introduced them on the train. They all live in a relatively small house. Ron has 5 brothers and 1 sister. Big brother Bill was also a supervisory student when he was in school and served as the president of the student union. After graduation, he worked as a curse solver at Gringotts. Charlie, the second brother, was a Quidditch captain when he was in school and raised dragons in Romania after graduation. Third brother Percy, excellent in both character and education, aspires to become a high-ranking official. It can be said that the entire Weasley family is the most like a pure-blood child. The fourth and fifth brothers are Fred and George. Although they are mischievous, their grades are top-notch, and they always make some strange inventions. So living under the brilliance of excellent brothers is really a mountain of pressure for Ron. This child lacks confidence all over. No matter how well he does, can he be as good as his brothers? And since I was young, I have been picking up old things from my brothers and using them, and my inferiority complex is deeply ingrained. Not to mention his younger sister Ginny's treatment, Ron's family status is directly at the bottom. Liu Sen observed a moment of silence for Ron and explained, the little badgers of Hufflepuff are hardworking and loyal. In their eyes, students from other colleges have very awkward personalities. Reckless lions, real eagles, and arrogant snakes. So they will feel that others are all twisted. Well, Uliha is like this, Ron said vaguely. He took a piece of Yorkshire pudding with rice meat dumplings and put it into his mouth. Suddenly, a pale blue glowing head appeared in the middle of Ron's dinner plate, and Ron choked rice meat dumplings in his throat. Harry pounded him hard on the back, but Ron still blushed from holding back. Clear water is like a spring. Take a sip of water quickly, buddy. Liu Sen used a spell to pour Ron a glass of water before saving the foodie. If the water doesn't work, Liu Sen will have to give a fresh breath. But this spell cannot solve the blockage in the throat, it just prevents people from suffocating. Ron, who had recovered, glared at the culprit who had drifted away and said, "It's a ghost that scared me." At this moment, another ghost drifted over and said, "What a wolf swallowing food. It's so regrettable that I didn't eat so happily when I was alive." The speaking ghost was wearing a dress with a large pleated round neck, which looked at least a few hundred years old. Ron dried the water in his glass, took another steak, and looked up to see the ghost asking, "Do you want to try it?" "Oh, no, thank you. We ghosts can't taste it. I haven't eaten anything in 400 years, he said regretfully. Ron took a bite of beef and said, "I remember, you're almost headless, Nick. My brothers told me about you." "I prefer people to call me Sir Nicholas," said the ghost. At this moment, Seymour Finnegan, with light brown hair, yawned and said, "Almost bald." "How could you almost bald?" Liu Sen knew what was going to happen and quickly looked around. Harry, Ron, Neville, and maybe they could take a look. Practicing courage is also good. Percy, he must have seen it before. Finnegan, he has to look at the questions he asks even if he doesn't look at them. Hermione. Hurry up and cover her eyes with your hands. Sure enough, Sir Nicholas showed everyone his severed head, leaving only a trace of flesh connecting his neck and head above. He looked like he was lifting a hat, with the cut of his neck facing towards the people at the dining table. Hermione glanced over and saw a little bit. Although Liu Sen helped her cover up most of it, her appetite was still affected. Liu Sen didn't feel much. In his previous life, he could watch Saw while eating tomato noodles. Nicholas's performance was just a small scene. But at this moment, Liu Sen was wondering if his ordinary lighting technique, Thunder Flame lightsaber mode, could cut off ghosts. He silently noted this, unsure of when he would have the opportunity to give it a try. After the small episode, the plate was automatically emptied and replaced with exquisite desserts and fruits. At this time, Hermione, Harry, and others did not know that the automatic serving of dishes was due to a group of hard-working house elves in the kitchen. The little wizards were eating delicious food and coincidentally started chatting about their daily routine. Simo Finnegan claimed that his mother was a witch, hiding her identity in dating his Muggle father. When she revealed her identity as a witch, she frightened his father a lot. Neville tells the story of his family throwing him off the roof in order to test whether he was a wizard or a squib. As a result, Neville took off directly and flew far before landing. Hermione and Percy talked about shape-shifting, and Percy's suggestion was for Hermione to first experiment with turning a match into a needle. However, Liu Sen suggested that Hermione could use her own curly hair experiment. For this proposal, Hermione said it's very good and won't propose it again in the future, and threw half a cookie at Liu Sen. Liu Sen couldn't tolerate such a waste of food. He added 2 pieces of honey pies to Ron's plate on the spot. After eating and drinking, Harry developed a strong interest in the faculty seat. When his gaze crossed Snape's oily hair and saw Professor Quirrell's headscarf, his scar suddenly began to ache. Harry covered his forehead and asked Percy next to him, who is talking to Professor Quirrell. "Oh, that's Professor Snape. He's the Dean of Slytherin College, teaching potions. Be careful, he's very biased towards his students. I heard he wants to teach defense against black magic the most, and everyone says he's the best at it." Liu Sen felt lost in thought when he saw Harry, knowing that he had a bad association with Professor Snape, and this misunderstanding would continue for several more years. Liu Sen knows the inside story. Snape, the love saint, has kept Harry his mother Lily in his heart. They were childhood sweethearts. At the same time, he also hates Harry's father James Potter for taking away his Lily and bullying him on campus. So Snape's treatment of Harry is very complicated. He is always making things difficult for Harry, but he will never really hurt him. At critical moments, he will even sacrifice his life to protect him. Liu Sen secretly poked and poked, wondering when to reveal a wave that he didn't know would unfold. After dinner, Principal Dumbledore instructed some precautions, including not allowing students to use magic in the hallway, not entering the Forbidden Forest, and not approaching the right hallway on the 4th floor if you don't want to die tragically. Percy muttered that the regulations behind it were strange. Principal Dumbledore usually explained why there was a danger, but this time he didn't mention the reason. The speaker had no intention, the listener had intention, and Harry had already thought of the mysterious little object Hagrid had taken out. Then Dumbledore led the teachers and students to sing a school song that made Liu Sen feel heartbroken, which made him deeply regret not learning to close his ears and listen to the mantra in advance. Chapter 6. Legitimate Defense, Really. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dinner, under the guidance of the prefect and supervisor, the students from the 4th hospital began to go back to their respective dormitories. Climb up and down the intricate and randomly deformed layers of stairs. Although Liu Sen felt strange, he was more unable to roast, because there were too many stairs, which was too troublesome. Most little wizards don't have much mood to look around, they are tired. Especially Ron and Harry, their stomachs were bulging and they walked exceptionally hard, even helping each other to keep up with the team. Passing through a corridor, the leader Percy suddenly stopped in his tracks. A short and ugly ghost with evil eyes floats in mid-air. An annoying Pippy ghost. He controlled a bundle of wooden sticks suspended in mid-air, intending to tease the first-grade freshman. Pippy ghost. Hurry up and leave, or I'll tell Blood Man Barrow that you're causing trouble in the hallway. Blood Man Barrow is the ghost of Slytherin, with a dull gaze and bloodstains left on his body before his death. He is the one who neither the little wizard or the ghost dare to confront in person. Although Percy used the name of Blood Man Barrow to scare Pippy Ghost, the other party clearly did not want to give up on this prank. He. The new kid doesn't even know my skills. Look at my moves. The wooden stick floating in mid-air suddenly flew towards Gryffindor's team. Although Percy and several senior students used their wands to cast spells and bounce away most of them, there were still many wooden sticks and debris smashed into the team. Harry and Ron had already been supporting each other in a daze, but at this moment, they were extremely embarrassed by the sudden attack. Liu Sen was right behind the two of them, looking up and taking out his wand to flick open the wooden stick. Suddenly, he was hit by the two fools in front of him, causing him to pause casting and become frantic. Fortunately, his wand was thick enough to serve as a melee weapon block, otherwise he would have been hit in the face. Unfortunately, Pippi Ghost, who was playing happily, noticed Liu Sen's movements and also saw his wand blocking the wooden stick. Waha! Look at that stupid little wizard. His wand is even thicker than Pippi Lord's wooden stick. It's so funny. You didn't steal the rolling pin of a domestic elf, did you? Puhaha. His laughter immediately made the scene extremely quiet, leaving only the laughter of Pippi Ghost in the originally noisy corridor. Everyone's gaze turned to Liu Sen, looking at his wand. I don't know which little wizard it was, but he didn't hold back his laughter. After a puff, a lot of laughter and whispers echoed around Liu Sr. But before Pippi Gui could give up, he controlled the fallen wooden stick to float again and threw it one by one towards Liu Sr. Liu Sen's surroundings were immediately cleared, leaving only Percy shouting loudly and firing several spells at Pippi Ghost. But Pippi Ghost is a special ghost, not only with the characteristics of ordinary ghosts that cannot be physically touched, but also able to control object suspension and attacks. It is said that it is a special spiritual body condensed from the mischievous thoughts of young wizards. Percy's curse was like a stone thrown into a black lake, only causing a few ripples to appear on Pippi's body, with no effect. This made Pippi Ghost even more arrogant. It chuckled and said, "Oh haha. The silly little ghost uses a rolling pin as a wand, and the senior wizard is even more foolish to want to use a spell to attack Pippi Ghost Lord." Sigh, hee hee. The men and women in the corridor portrait ran out of their frames and went to the nearest place to watch the excitement. Liu Sen's anger had reached its peak. When a new round of wooden sticks attacked him, Liu Sen secretly showed an evil smile but shouted loudly, "Don't come over." At the same time, the wand in hand ignited 10 times more intense thunder than on the train. With a wave of his hand, a thunderous flame of over 10 meters flashed across the corridor in an instant. As the thunderous sword blade swept past and disappeared like a meteor, everyone took a deep breath. The little wizard who was close felt the scorching heat on his face in that moment of radiance. Hermione let out a brief scream in the crowd, although the latter half of it seemed even more abrupt when she held it in her mouth. No one paid attention. There is a burnt sword mark on the ceiling of the corridor. The bricks and stones were instantly roasted into a dark red color by the high temperature, as if they were about to melt lava. This is Hogwarts Castle. Every corner is guarded by magic. Several frames near the ceiling were swept by aftershocks, breaking into two and slowly burning. The people in the painting managed to escape while watching the excitement elsewhere, but at this moment they were all frightened. The Pippi Ghost in mid-air has long disappeared, and a few sharp-eyed little wizards have captured the situation at that time. At the moment when Lei Yan's sword blade touched Pippi Gui, his body exploded and scattered like a pierced water ball. The head was not completely shattered, but was overturned by the explosive impact and spun through the wall, lost in its direction. I don't know which panicked little wizard shouted in panic, "He killed Pippi Ghost." He actually killed a ghost. The narrow corridor suddenly became noisy again. There was more space left around Liu Sen, and only Harry and a few familiar people dared to approach. I am in legitimate defense. You can testify to me. It was Pippi Ghost who took the initiative. Liu Sen pretended to be calm at this moment, but in fact, he couldn't even stand steadily and his head was dizzy. The explosive blow just now emptied almost all the magic, and this high intensity is still the first experiment. Well, it can be called Serious Illumination Technique. 40 meter knife mode. Fred excitedly said in the crowd, "How did you do it? It's so cool. We've been wanting to do this for a long time." George's eyes lit up and he said, "Listen, buddy. How about exchanging 10, no, 21 dung eggs for your move? This power is absolutely amazing." Percy was quite serious, and he shouted, "Quiet. Quiet. Organize discipline among the senior students. See if anyone is injured." As the little wizard's gate was in chaos, a loudspeaker-like shout echoed outside the crowd. "Quiet. Everyone is quiet." Liu Sen saw Professor McGonagall, wearing glasses and an emerald-green ceremonial robe, rushing over angrily. She was holding a wand in her hand, and just now she must have used a loud voice. Percy squeezed through the crowd, ready to report the situation to Professor McGonagall. "Thank you, Percy. I heard from the portrait that..." Before Professor McGonagall could finish speaking, he saw the sword marks on the ceiling that had already cooled down and the smoking photo frame. Surprised, Professor McGonagall took off his glasses, which clearly exceeded her imagination. Never before has such a thing happened. It has never happened since the school was founded. It's outrageous. Such a serious thing happened just after the opening banquet. Who? Which senior student did it? I want to deduct 50 points. Not 100 points. Professor McGonagall is not only the vice president but also the dean of Gryffindor College, but she is meticulous in her work and even deducts points for her own college, which is not a problem for Snape. Probably. Everyone retreated together and let Liu Sen out. Liu Sen 10 minutes later, Liu Sen was taken by Professor McGonagall to a statue of an ugly monster located on the 3rd floor. Iced Lemon. The statue that heard the command moved and dodged, revealing the entrance to the principal's office behind him. As the majestic lion-shaped eagle-headed statue inside rotates, a spiral staircase is revealed. The spiral staircase that slowly ascended automatically reached the 8th floor, and Liu Sen felt that the dizziness caused by the excessive magic had now become even more severe. The walls of the principal's office are covered with portraits of past Hogwarts principals, some snoring, some already hearing about what just happened, and they are visiting each other to talk, while also observing the problematic student who caused trouble on the first day of school. Liu Sen looked around and saw a circular duplex office, beautiful and imposing. On the 2nd floor and on both sides of the stairs are shiny bookshelves, with wrinkled branch hats on the top, but it is sleeping. Liu Sen remembered that there was a sword inside his hat. Harry will pull out the Gryffindor sword from inside and stab the snake monster next year. During the final battle, Neville also pulled it out and angrily beheaded the snake head, destroying a sole weapon of the noseless monster. Turning his head, his gaze swept over the strange little ornaments and candies on the principal's desk. On the cabinet in the corner, there should be a stone basin inside, which will appear a few years later. Seems like I forgot something. Liu Sen felt his head was still very drowsy, and his magic was a bit overdrawn. Turning his head, he saw the legendary creature with fiery red feathers on a shelf. The Phoenix. Liu Sen remembers whether this phoenix is called Fox or something. It is the divine bird guarding the Dumbledore family. The phoenix has various magical abilities. It can teleport with people ignoring spatial restrictions, its tears can heal and detoxify, and its feathers are precious wand materials. Harry and Voldemort's wands contain the feathers of this phoenix. When Liu Sen looked at Fox, he also opened his beautiful eyes from his slumber. It looked at Liu Sen with equal curiosity and slowly unfolded its beautiful head feathers and wings. Liu Sen remembered that when he was in 2nd grade, Fox even saved Harry with its tears, and could even detoxify the snake monster. I don't know if there's a chance to collect some Liang. And its magical teleportation ability is even stronger than the Phantom Shift. In the future, Old Deng can use it to escape the pursuit of the Ministry of Magic and hang a group of people. This can be studied and researched. On the notebook when going out, it's easy to forget the headache. Just as Liu Sen was teasing Fox, Professor Dumbledore, wearing a loose nightgown, walked down the spiral staircase. It seems that Fox really likes you, kid, he said in a light voice. Lazy old Deng looks even older, but it's still hard to tell that he's over 100 years old this year. But it seems like it will crash in 6 years. Liu Sen thought of it. Professor McGonagall, who brought Liu Sen over, anxiously said, "Albus, you should have seen this child almost lift the ceiling. He even burned 7 portraits. And Pippi Ghost was killed by him. This is probably the most serious destructive event in history." "Is it serious?" 7 years later, the nose monster brought his little brother in and almost flattened the school. That's what's serious. Liu Sen poked and thought to himself. Dumbledore's hand trembled for a moment, and after thinking for a moment, he peeled open a pile of cockroaches and threw it in his mouth, a kind of cockroach-shaped candy that moves. "Do you want one?" Seeing McGonagall glare at him, Dumbledore turned the sugar box towards Liu Sen again, his half-moon-shaped glasses shimmering. Liu Sen shook his head fiercely. "Thank you very much. Old Deng has a very strong taste. I remember when he visited Harry in the future, he ate earwax-flavored beans. And I didn't vomit. Just chew it that way. Maliva, don't worry. The portraits have already told me what happened, as long as there are no students injured. But Pippi Ghost was killed by this child." Professor McGonagall frowned and said, "Oh Maliva. Don't be fooled by appearances. The Pippi Ghost won't die, it's special." Dumbledore said with a smile. "That's right, ghosts are quite special. Next year, the snake monster will stare and petrify. Not dead either." Liu Sen agreed in his heart. Professor McGonagall looked at Liu Sendao in distress and was very angry to find that the child seemed to be okay. She said angrily, "But he also destroyed the school and those ancient portraits. This is the first night of the new school year. It's so outrageous." Liu Sen quickly said, "I am in self-defense. Pippi Ghost attacked me. I didn't control my strength when I counterattacked, that's why I did that. Really, everyone can testify." After saying that, he rose in his heart. A few paintings that everyone has seen are just great works of the Hogwarts family. They are nothing. 3 years later, Sirius tore up such an important painting of Madame Fatty, and no one asked him to lose money afterwards, did he? Dumbledore let out an ouch. Liu Sen looked over and seemed to have bitten his finger to prevent the pile of cockroaches from running out of his mouth. "It's a bit dark, isn't it?" He flicked his finger and suddenly the spare candle in the room was lit. Liu Sen thought to himself. "It's really convenient to cast spells without a staff. I also want to learn." Sigh. Do you remember that old Deng had a convenient light extinguisher and really wanted to research it? After he hung it up, he passed it on to Ron, and the hidden function seemed to be a guide. Dumbledore frowned and pondered, saying slowly, "The important thing is that no one is injured or dead. At Hogwarts, every little wizard is safe, both now and in the future, isn't it?" Liu Sen thought to himself, "Is it safe?" This year, Voldemort possessed Quirrell and Harry almost died. Next year, Voldemort's diary will petrify a few students with snake monsters, almost causing them to fail. The year after tomorrow, Sirius came to catch Peter the Dwarf, causing Lu Ping to lose control and the Dementor to lose control. 3 little ones almost died. In the following year, the Death Eaters disguised themselves as professors and disrupted the Triwizard Tournament, which was much more dangerous. Cedric even died. The worst part was when in 7th grade, the noseless monster brought his little brother, the Death Eater, and directly killed him. He fought like a demolition site, sacrificing one of the twins. "Oh, I don't want to, I have a headache." With a bang, Dumbledore's tall glass poured over and sprinkled a table of juice. "Ah, I'm really not careful. When I get old, I just need to rest early, otherwise I'll be unable to hold a cup like me." He glanced at the clock in surprise and said, "Oh, it's already so late. I think that's all for now." As little Liu Sen said, "Everything is an accident, it's just self-defense. Liu Sen quickly agreed, right. I didn't mean to. It was all an accident. But Liu Sen thought to himself, I did it on purpose. Pippi Ghost blamed me for hitting the gun on its own. I have been wanting to test the power of the strongest revision of my lighting technique for a long time. And I really want to try if the ghost can cut it. I just didn't expect the power to lose control and the consumption to exceed the limit. Dumbledore rested his hand on his forehead, looking a bit tired. Professor McGonagall was worried and said, Albus, it seems you need to rest early. So today's matter is up to you. I'll take this child back first. Dumbledore looked up wearily and said, Oh, of course, I mean everyone should rest early. Thank you, Maliva. So, child, rest well. I believe tomorrow's first day of class will be full and exciting. Liu Sen nodded and said, Thank you, Principal Dumbledore. I will study hard and make progress every day. Then he added in his heart. It must be wonderful. Tomorrow Professor McGonagall will perform an online transformation of an expired cat lady. Professor Flavia will fall off the podium when he reads Harry's name. What else is the first day of class? No, it seems like I forgot something very important, right? As the two were about to leave the principal's office, Professor Dumbledore suddenly said, Please wait, Maliva. I have a few words to talk to you alone, it won't take up too much time. Professor McGonagall gave Liu Sen a stern look and said, Mr. Liu Sen, you should go back first. Please be careful in the future. Liu Sen quickly made a promise and then fled from the principal's office. Chapter 7. How difficult it is to find a way. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the ugly guardian monster squatted back in place, Liu Sen appeared alone in the corridor. This. I don't know the way. Looking back at the gatekeeper, Liu Sen thought to himself, it's better not to go back, this is the principal's office. Old Deng has a dark belly. It's too dangerous to arrange Harry clearly from the beginning. Wait. Liu Sen's confused mind eased a lot due to the outbreak of magic, and his thoughts gradually became clear. Suddenly, he knew he had forgotten something important. Fuck. Old Deng can read the heart. He is a master of telepathy and mindfulness. Oh, no. Did you not expose it just now? Do you think of anything messy? After a moment of contemplation, a cold sweat suddenly flowed down. I can't remember exactly what I was thinking, I had a terrible headache just now. Sigh. I hope old Deng's mind capturing and recitation hasn't been opened just now. It shouldn't have been opened, right? Who would have been so bored, reading minds at any time for an ordinary first-year wizard? That's too abnormal. It shouldn't have been exposed. Liu Sen comforted himself while quickly fleeing. By the time he was panting and resting on the wall, he had forgotten how many floors he had gone up and took a few turns. Hush. Where am I? Which floors are these? Where is my dormitory? I'm not a road crazy. Oh, by the way, I haven't been to the dormitory yet. I'm not a road enthusiast, I just don't know where the dormitory is, it's really great. Damn it. In the evening, Liu Sen wandered around the intricate Hogwarts by himself, and coincidentally, there were 142 stairs here. Unlike what was originally thought, not all buildings in Hogwarts are located in a large building that goes straight up and down, but are divided into many towers with a long corridor and a connecting bridge in the middle. Often, it is necessary to go downstairs and walk through the correct corridor, then take another staircase and turn onto the correct path to reach the destination. When Liu Sen returned without success from the randomly found staircase for the 6th time, he decided to ask someone for directions. Coincidentally, a ghost drifted by in the distance, which was a female ghost with a student's appearance. Hello, student. Do you know how to get to the Gryffindor lounge? Liu Sen asked with a friendly smile as much as possible. The female ghost seemed gloomy, but also drifted over in a daze. Liu Sen is in a good mood and seems to have hope. Suddenly, the female ghost widened her eyes and trembled in mid-air, as if she wanted to cry but dared not. I tightly covered my mouth with both hands, tears streaming down my face. Although it was a ghost, I forgot how to drift away. She sat in mid-air, her legs tightly clenched, and as the tremors intensified, Liu Sen even worried that she would shake herself apart. I'll ask for a way. You should be a peach blossom, right? It's okay if you don't want to say it. Don't cry. This ghost is the only young ghost in the women's restroom, with a ponytail, glasses on, and a school uniform. Her trembling had reached its extreme, then suddenly turned into waves of trembling. Liu Sen saw a wisp of unknown liquid dripping from under her body. After a few seconds of silence, her crying finally erupted. Don't kill me. Woo-woo. I shouldn't have left the restroom. You killed Pippi Ghost. You scared us all ghosts. Woo-woo. Many ghosts I don't know are hiding in my restroom, I have nowhere to hide before coming out. Let me go. Liu Sen heard Peach Blossom's hysterical crying, his face covered in black lines, he didn't know the impact was so great. His lifelong fame. He is elegant and easy-going. This annoying skin ghost, I really want to pull it out and chop it again. It's cheap. Liu Sen would like to offer a few words of comfort and clarify his image as Wei Guangzheng. But the Peach Blossom girl, who burst into tears, reignited her desire for survival. She turned around, wriggling in the air like a swim, and of course, she never forgot to reminisce and plead for mercy throughout the journey. Peach Blossom vigorously waved her arms and swam forward, finally disappearing through a wall. Liu Sen turned into a lonely person searching for his way in the corridor. Next, he set his sights on the mural. But he still finds it difficult to make progress, no matter where he goes, the portrait is empty. Even a chicken or a dog in the painting, as long as they are living creatures, will be taken away by the fugitives, fearing that Liu Sen will leave no chickens or dogs behind. Sharp-eyed Liu Sen noticed that as soon as he changed direction, he could still see the little person hidden in the distant picture frame. But they will immediately call on their friends to escape. Wherever Liu Sen goes, everything is empty. What a question. There's no hair left. At this moment, Liu Sen heard the clanging sound from the distant picture frame, from far to near. Liu Sen suddenly came to his senses. I saw a short and chubby knight wearing armor, riding a chubby, dark gray striped pony through a painting and running towards Liu Sr. In a painting behind the knight, a person hidden under the table is still advising him not to approach. As the knight's chubby little horse passed by a landscape painting, it was firmly attracted by the green grass on the ground, and suddenly stopped abruptly, catching the knight off guard. He fell off the chubby little horse in great embarrassment, and when he got up again, he spat out a mouthful of green grass. The knight cursed and began to pull the reins of the chubby little horse, but he failed. The chubby little horse focused on eating grass and ignored him. The knight stepped aside helplessly and ran to the frame in front of Liu Sen, painting himself one by one. He drew his long sword from his waist and shouted loudly, "Is that you? Kill that dirty and noisy bastard. That scoundrel's dog thing." Oha. Liu Sen blinked and said, "If you're talking about Pippi Ghost, then it's me, but I'm just in self-defense." The knight let out a sharp ha-ha sound and waved his long sword excitedly, but did not notice his feet and fell into a flat sand and goose. His armor made a clanging sound, and in the end, he struggled to stand up again with a long sword to support himself. Liu Sen asked, "Are you okay?" The knight said happily, "It's okay. I'm doing great. My comrades. My most loyal, reliable, and brave comrades. I, Sir Cardigan, finally have a great revenge. Pippi Ghost. What did he do to you?" Liu Sen asked in confusion. "That despicable thug, a vulgar raider. He always paints my paintings with ink. And that timid dog never duels with me. Never. Cadogan gritted his teeth and said. Liu Sen is not interested in their grudges, he just wants to find a way. So he tentatively said, Sir Cadogan, right. Can you please help me find the Gryffindor lounge? Oh. Don't say it's troublesome. My bravest and fearless comrade. Search for it. I'm very skilled in this task. Follow me closely. Comrades. Let's overcome obstacles and move forward. Sir Cadogan exclaimed passionately, his whole being excited. He struggled to pull out his long sword that was stuck on the ground and began leading the way ahead. Liu Sen felt that although this knight was a bit neurotic, like Tang Jikid in the novel, it was still quite pleasing to finally have someone lead the way. The Cardigan knight retrieved the chubby little horse that was grazing, and finally pulled it out of the grass again. With the horse, the knight's speed was much faster. Liu Sen had to carefully focus on the paintings on the wall and jog along the way to avoid the knight jingling and getting lost when passing through the frames one by one. The largest portrait in front and the Gryffindor public lounge behind it. My dearest comrade. We have successfully completed this mission. Don't forget that you will always have a selfless and brave comrade. Sir Cadogan is willing to fight alongside you at any time. So goodbye. Liu Sen cooperated and said, Goodbye comrades. My name is Liu Sen, and if you encounter any evil enemies again, you can come to me. Thank you for leading the way for me. Farewell to the crazy knight. Liu Sen quietly looked up at the corridor ahead, where several faint snores could be heard in the picture frame. It seems that Liu Sen ran all the way just now, breaking away from the portrait army that was passing messages to each other and hiding. This side is far from the previous floor where the Fury Peeper ghost was located, and also far from Principal Dumbledore's office. The fear of the portraits did not spread here, that's great. Liu Sen walked to the portrait of the fat lady. She was a fat lady wearing a pink noble skirt and an ugly curly hair cover. Her face was painted with unnatural powder blusher, and her dress style was very old-fashioned. Cough cough, good evening madam. Could you please open the door? Madame Pang's snoring was interrupted, and she closed her eyes impatiently with a hint of displeasure and said, Command. Liu Sen scratched his head and awkwardly rubbed his hands. Sorry, could you please accommodate me? I'm a freshman in first grade and didn't have a chance to know the password. Please say the password. I came back from the principal's office. Dumbledore asked me something. And Professor McGonagall can testify for me. No password allowed inside. Liu Sen knows that this chubby lady is difficult to explain, but it would be impolite not to try. It was already very late at this time, and he was already tired, gradually losing patience. Can't you really drive it? Everyone has to say the password. Mrs. Pang said displeasantly, No one can pass by me without saying the password. If there is no password, leave quickly. Don't disturb my rest. It's already a few o'clock. Liu Sen remembered serious and threatened Lady Pang to open the door by tearing up the canvas, which seemed to require some means. Ah! What a headache, in that case. Fluorescence shining brightly. Liu Sen pulled out his wand and activated the ordinary lighting technique. Thunder Flame Mode. He held the Thunder Flame lightsaber as a lighting tube and approached the portrait of the fat lady, muttering to himself, I heard there is a pear in the painting. Just scratch it and the door will open. Where is it? Madame Pang opened her eyes and sneered, Stupid little devil. I'm not in the kitchen. Did you learn fluorescence shining from Muggle? My grandmother uses it better than you. Wait. What is this? The thunder on the sword is not for fun. It is a high-energy magical flame excited by reference plasma. In addition, it is also a gathering of dangerous thunder. The temperature of this kind of lightning inflammation is very astonishing. Liu Sen and his father Lu Guizhong have tested it, and the temperature of the sword edge easily exceeds 1,000. Even if it's close to the sword, the scattered temperature can ignite clothing and burn the skin. Madame Fatty is a magical portrait, and the foundation and weakness of the portrait are the canvas and photo frame. Hurry up. I'm about to be ignited. For Merlin's sake. Liu Sen seemed to have not heard him continue to shine up and down with thunderous light. Where is it? The hidden switch. As a Gryffindor student, I can't even open the door to the lounge. Let me try adjusting the highlights again. Later on, he slightly increased his magic output, and the exhausted magic had been restored quite a bit. The normal thunder flame mode can last for a while. Mrs. Pang was frightened and panicked, using her chubby hands to vigorously fan her face. Oh, it's too hot. I'm going to be roasted. It's so hot. Liu Sen waved his wand in his hand, seemingly careless, but in fact, he mercilessly stopped the fat lady who was planning to escape. Mrs. Pang's voice was panicked and excited. I know who you are. They said there's a new ghost killer. Portrait of a butcher. I thought it was a joke. Now I believe it. You're that terrible Gryffindor little devil. Liu Sen took away his wand and said, who gave me the nickname? It's so unpleasant. I think Gryffindor's light, Hogwarts' thunder. This style of title is more in line with my low-key and sunny heart. Do you think so? Finally, Liu Sen seemed to unintentionally point the tip of Lei Yan's sword slowly towards the chubby lady who was trying to hide. Madame Pang screamed, I'll open the door now. Hurry up. Go in. Put away your flames. Liu Sen bowed in satisfaction and walked back into the public lounge, saying, Thank you, madam. But this is not a flame, it's just a very ordinary lighting technique. This transformation is Thunder Flame Lightsaber Mode. Good night. See you tomorrow. The door behind me slowly closed, and there came Lady Pang's sorrow, Merlin. Thank goodness, the little devil has finally left. At this moment, Liu Sen was in a good mood and took a brief stroll around the already empty public lounge. It's a bit old but very clean, with many back sofas in the circular hall for young wizards to talk to and relax. He sat by the warm stove for a while and stretched lazily. Find your own bed, it's too late. Liu Sen walked up the stairs. The first entrance was towards the male dormitory, and then up was the female dormitory. The entrance to the men's dormitory is a corridor with many rooms with independent wooden doors, which is different from movies or novels. Liu Sen was shocked. What version is this? Surprisingly, it's a separate dormitory. Isn't it true that all the boys in the original work are together? Fortunately, there was a paper slip posted at the entrance of the corridor, which indicated which dormitory the first-grade wizard was assigned to. Liu Sen was looking for his name when suddenly a door to a room not far away was opened. Harry exposed half of his head and was wearing glasses. Hey, Harry. You haven't slept yet? Liu Sen asked in surprise. With the help of his glasses, Harry finally saw who it was and said, Oh my goodness. Liu Senator, you're finally back. We're all worried that you might be fired. Come in quickly. Let's share a bed. Liu Sen walked into the room, feeling a bit like a university dormitory, but in a classical style. There were 4 single beds with deep red curtains inside. Under the moonlight outside the window, Liu Sen recognized the other 2 people as Ron and Neville. Not bad, they are both acquaintances. Liu Sen found his backpack by the bed left for him, changed into his pajamas, and went alone to the end of the corridor, where there was a washroom and bathroom. After a simple wash, Liu Sen lay in bed, reminiscing carefully. It seems that many details and impressions of Hogwarts are different, including the appearance of people like Harry, which is quite different from those in the movie. Turning over and sleeping with his eyes closed, Liu Sen thought to himself, mind him. Don't ask, asking is parallel universe. Chapter 8. Professor McGonagall's class. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In the morning, Liu Sen was awakened by a melodious harp music, which should be the wake-up bell for the students. Liu Sen saw that his roommates were still awake and Ron was still talking in his sleep, so he quietly punched them by the window before calling them out. Following senior students, Liu Sen and his 4 companions walked through complex corridors and stairs to the restaurant for breakfast. The road is a bit difficult to remember, and without a senior student leading the way, the 4 of them may not be able to eat. Several people are very concerned about Liu Sen's experience last night. After all, it was the first day of school when he was called to the principal's office. Liu Sen happily said, "Really, the principal is amazing. He even gave me candy to eat. He didn't scold me or deduct any points. After I couldn't find my way out, I coincidentally met a beautiful female ghost senior who took the initiative to approach me. Afterwards, there will be enthusiastic portraits taking the initiative to guide me. Especially the fat lady. You opened the door to me very reasonably. By the way, I forgot to say hello to Mrs. Pang this morning, not to mention Ron and Harry. Even Neville, who was a bit slow, didn't quite believe Liu Sen's words. Because any portrait passed by along the way would cause a commotion. The little devil is here. Quick Run is a portrait killer. Most portraits run away when they see Liu Sen, while a few who haven't run are also trembling and afraid to look at Liu Senior. Ghosts are even more unbearable. During mealtime in the academy, ghosts would emerge from all corners and wander around the little wizard's table, searching for a sense of presence. Today, only a few ghosts, such as the Blood Man Barrow, dare to stand up. Liu Sen also heard a ghost whispering in the distance, "Pippi Ghost is dead." Really? That child of Peach Blossom Girl was scared to pee. Oh, it's so scary. Ah, run. The ghost killer saw me. However, Liu Sen did not attract the attention of all teachers and students. Many students were skeptical about Liu Sen's feat yesterday, but they were all enthusiastic about another thing. Really, I saw his scar. Hello, Harry Potter. Welcome to Hogwarts. That's Harry. Look. Harry has lacked attention since childhood and is not used to being like a celebrity, with people watching and chatting up wherever he goes. Ron naturally said, "How about it? I told you you were very famous." At breakfast, Hermione chattered beside her about how reckless Liu Sen was yesterday and how many school rules he had violated. "I read in A History of Hogwarts." Ron said impatiently, all right. No one will go read the thick brick history of Hermione. Liu Sen was really cool yesterday. Think about it, he killed Pippi Ghost. That's the guy everyone hates. Liu Sen took a bite of the toast and explained to his classmates, "I'm just defending myself. I don't want to either. You know the situation at the time." And Principal Dumbledore said, "Pippi Ghost won't die easily, it's very special." Hermione did not continue to argue because this year's schedule was sent out during breakfast. The morning is Professor McGonagall's deformation class, and the class starts at 9 o'clock. The little wizards still have time to go back to bed and retrieve books. Liu Sen patted his backpack and said, "I carry all my books with me, but I can accompany you back to pick them up. Let's just exercise." "That's interesting, buddy." Ron said happily. Harry sighed and said, "The road is too difficult to find. If it weren't for the senior students leading the way in the morning, I wouldn't have had breakfast." Me too." Neville weakly agreed from the side. Hermione shook her head and said, "I won't go back. Coincidentally, I have Beginner's Metamorphosis Guide with me in my morning reading for leisure." A few people glanced at the thick stack of books on Miss Mastercard's dining table, exchanged glances, and all expressed shock. "Do you call that pile of books a morning reading pastime?" Ron whispered. Of course, what came in exchange was a blank eye from Hermione's classmate. At this moment, the chirping and flapping of wings came from above the hall, indicating that the delivery owl had arrived. Hundreds of owls, big and small, threw letters and packages to the little wizards. Suddenly, feathers and bird droppings flew together, and letters and gifts fell together. Neville, Ron, and many young wizards from wizarding families have received letters from their families congratulating them on their successful separation. Percy also received a Prophet's Daily, which many wizards who were interested in current affairs news ordered. The dynamic news photos and changing crossword puzzles on top also piqued Liu Sen's father, Liu Guizhong, who bought a lot before the start of school. However, the convenient delivery method is not perfect either. Apart from the flying feathers and bird droppings, there are also careless and clumsy birds falling onto the dinner plate. The delivery process also officially declares the end of breakfast. As the four boys stood up, suddenly a ghost behind them called out to Liu Sr. "Mr. Liu Sen, can I take up some of your time?" A few people turned around and saw Sir Nicholas, who was almost headless Nick. "Good morning. Sir Nicholas. What's up?" "I'm just going back to my dormitory to pick up books," Liu Sen said in confusion. Nicholas was not as calm as usual and said a bit embarrassed, "I'm sorry. But I don't think it will take up too much of your time. There's something important to me. Only you can help." Liu Sen became interested and he probably knew what was going on. Ron and the others saw that Nicholas wanted to talk to Liu Sen alone, so they had to go back with the senior students to pick up the books. Liu Sen specifically reminded the three of them, "Don't be late. That's Professor McGonagall's class." Leaving a few people for now, Liu Sen followed Sir Nicholas to an empty corner. Liu Sen asked first, "Sir, please speak up. Is there anything I can help with?" Nicholas looked at Liu Sen's bulging pocket and guessed that the special wand should be inside. After struggling to make up his mind, he said, "You know they all call me Nick, who almost lost his head. But for the ghost, that's not a good thing." Liu Sen nodded seriously and asked directly, "So you want me to help you separate your head, right?" Sir Nicholas was somewhat shocked and said, "Oh. Merlin. You're such a smart child." "That's right. That's right. You know what? I've always wanted to apply to join the Headless Knights Club. But they refused me because my head still had that annoying little flesh attached." Liu Sen actually wanted to explore the essence of ghosts before the start of school, to study whether they were special energies or something. Now that the experimental materials are delivered to your door, someone is really giving pillows when you doze off. Liu Sen pondered for a moment and said, "Sir Nicholas, you know, yesterday I was actually out of legitimate defense, and it's difficult for me to control that kind of magic. I'm sorry and guilty about the Pippi ghost incident." The knight thought that Liu Sen had suffered a mental trauma and quickly comforted him, saying, "Oh, of course. I trust you very much, my friend. The death of Pippi ghost is very painful for all of us yous. But it is also very joyful. I mean, sometimes it does go too far. Always embarrassing us ghosts. But who let it provoke you on its own? Is that right? Do you know? The situation at that time was that all of us ghosts were frightened." "Well, I heard they call me the ghost killer," Liu Sen said. Upon hearing these words, Sir Nicholas trembled violently, as if he had only recently associated Liu Sen with this nickname. "Ah, yes, yes. You know, we are all ghosts transformed after death, and we have a deeper fear of death. Originally, ghosts were in an extremely bad state, but who knew you could be able to? Can we kill the ghost?" Liu Sen helped him say. As soon as these words were spoken, Sir Nicholas let out a low moan, his head almost falling, and he trembled as he helped him back. Actually, Pippi Guay may not have died," Liu Sen said quickly when he saw him so scared. In Sir Nicholas's shock, Liu Sen told him what Dumbledore had said, while also hoping to ease the ghost's fear of him through Nicholas's words. "So, my special wand combined with my personal magical accident caused the situation last night. Of course I am willing to help you, but I cannot be in a hurry. First, I need to find Pippi ghost. Let's see what impact my magic has on him, and then we can conduct experiments to be more secure. Sir Nicholas pondered for a moment and also felt that it was not advisable to make Liu Sen cut himself too hastily. So he thanked Liu Sen and enthusiastically went to search for the possibility of returning, Liv, the Pippi ghost. Liu Sen glanced at the time, and it had only been 10 minutes since the conversation with Sir Nicholas, with plenty of time left before class. By now, Harry and the others should have received their textbooks. With his reminder, perhaps they wouldn't be late for training. When he entered the classroom, there were already many young wizards sitting in their seats. This class is a joint class between Gryffindor and Slytherin, and the glorious tradition of the two colleges has been inherited since the first day. No one wants to be next to each other. The two houses are not dealing with each other. The classroom was very large, and he chose a middle seat. Hermione, the top student in the front row, was nervously flipping through a book to preview. Draco and his two attendants in the back row saw him sitting in the front, and immediately put aside their playfulness. They also opened their books in a dignified manner, and their glances at Liu Sen were more complicated than when they were on the train. When the class bell rang, Professor McGonagall stood on the podium on time. She sternly warned the little wizard, "The Metamorphosis class is the most complex and dangerous course you have in Hogwarts. Any mischievous student in my class will be invited out. Never come back." Speaking of which, Professor McGonagall gave Liu Sen a slightly meaningful glance. "Liu Senator, be obedient and obedient." JPG later, she explained the origin and development of shape-shifting in a simple and easy way, and publicly transformed her desk into a pig, then turned it back. The students all applauded warmly and became enthusiastic about the transformation technique. When everyone was copying the text, Professor McGonagall showed off her animagus transformation technique again. She turned into a cat. The class has already started for 20 minutes. Harry, Ron, and Neville arrived late. Liu Sen wanted to speak out as a reminder, but Ron still thought, as in the movie, that Professor McGonagall had not come. As soon as I entered the door, I sat in front of Professor McGonagall. Cat, fortunately, I caught up in time. Otherwise, Professor McGonagall's face would be so ugly. As soon as the words fell, the cat on the podium leaped and transformed into Professor McGonagall, who had an unpleasant expression in Ron's mouth, as it fell to the ground. The little wizards tried to hold back their laughter, including Liu Senator. It wasn't because he had a dark heart, but because he had reminded them all that these three idiots were still late. After being harshly criticized by Professor McGonagall, the three of them awkwardly sat next to Liu Sr. The deformation class is a 2-hour-long class, and during the break, Liu Sen finally asked, "What's the situation with the three of you? Why are you so late?" Harry and Nawadon looked mournful and said, "We're lost." "No, you guys. Even if you get lost, you won't be late for half a class. You still have a lot of time when you leave the auditorium," Liu Sen said in confusion. "Harry. We were walking when the stairs suddenly deformed. It took us to the hallway on the 4th floor. We're planning to wait until the stairs come back before we leave." Ron continued, "But who knew, that administrator named Filch insisted that we were intentionally trespassing on the forbidden area. How did we know that it was the hallway that Principal Dumbledore didn't let us get close to? We didn't even notice," Harry angrily said, "and his cat with only a little shed hair. It's so terrifying. It was it that found us first. Then it ran to report to Filch, and he came over to block us. How could he not let us leave?" Liu Sen touched his chin. "These three unlucky children are really a double blessing. Hogwarts has 142 staircases, many of which change direction from time to time. Some steps may suddenly disappear, and if you don't want to get lost or step on them empty, you must firmly remember every special position. This is indeed quite difficult for young wizards who have just started school. And Filch is one of the few annoying guys in school. I don't know why Filch was appointed as the administrator back then. This old man has a bad temper and always watches every move of his students, enjoying catching the little wizard who made mistakes. The most crucial thing is that Liu Sen knows he's a mute cannon. Let a mute cannon supervise the little wizard. Sometimes the mischievous tricks of the little wizard leave the hallway in chaos. If it's a teacher who knows magic, just a snap of a finger can handle it. But Filch couldn't use even one spell, so he could only use a cleaning agent and a wire brush to slowly clean up with a snort. "How did he let you go later?" Liu Sen asked. "He held us back and threatened us to be locked up in the dungeon and whipped us with a whip," Neville said with some fear. "In the end, Professor Quirrell helped us out. He happened to pass by. If it weren't for him, Filch might have taken us to the principal's office," Ron said. Harry sighed and said, "Yes, thanks to Professor Quirrell. He's so kind." Liu Sen smiled and asked knowingly, "You guys are very lucky. But it's really strange. The corridor on the right side of the 4th floor is off limits. I wonder why Professor Quirrell went." The 3 little wizards who survived the disaster didn't take Liu Sen's words to heart, they had to fill in their notes during the break. Professor McGonagall explained in half a class the differences between ancient and modern shape-shifting techniques, and personally demonstrated several advanced shape-shifting techniques. It has to be said that Professor McGonagall is truly the vice president, and he excels in teaching with a wide range of references. The questions asked by the little wizard were also calmly answered, and the explanations were vivid and interesting. If she were not so strict, the class would be full of laughter. Professor McGonagall is right in saying that metamorphosis is indeed the most complex and dangerous subject among all subjects in the school. This discipline involves ancient magic history, ancient magic texts, spells, and even some knowledge of magic potions. Dumbledore was also a shape-shifting teacher back then. Liu Sen estimated that he could study metamorphosis to the pinnacle of wizarding, and all subjects must also be skilled. Given the complexity of shape-shifting, the 2-hour class only leaves the last 20 minutes for the young wizards to experience the casting experience of basic shape-shifting. Professor McGonagall guided the magic spells and key movements while slowly pacing the classroom, observing the little wizard waving his wand. Everyone has a match in front of them, and what they need to do is turn it into a needle. Liu Sen took out his wand, and Harry and Ron around him had seen it many times without paying much attention. It's Professor McGonagall's first time seeing such a strange wand. She couldn't help but focus more on Liu Sr. Liu Sen pondered the key points of the transformation technique and focused his attention on the match. He thought. The main component of wood is carbon, with the chemical symbol C, while the main component of needles is iron, with the chemical symbol Fe. The atoms of the two are completely different, it is not scientific to turn wood into iron. Transforming one atom into another may only be possible in the Muggle scientific community through particle colliders or nuclear reactions. Of course, if you think about it, it's a dead end. The more you delve into the details, the harder it becomes to learn the technique of transformation. So in the matter of magic, highlight free will. This is the idealistic thing. Materialism like traditional science cannot be broken down in detail. Chinese magic emphasizes the unity of essence, energy, and spirit, which is similar to the Western way of using actions and spells to strengthen beliefs. So the key is to concentrate beliefs and mobilize magic. After passing the mental level, Liu Sen focused his attention and affirmed a taken-for-granted thought, mentally transforming the match into a needle to supplement his mind. Then he mobilized his magic power and waved his wand. Like all the spells he released, a small arc hit the target match. The match briefly turned silver, but a few seconds later it changed back, and the red phosphorus at the tip of the match immediately burned. Liu Sen extinguished the match and observed for a while. It should be due to poor control. And subconsciously, I still pay attention to the chemical composition of the match. In the eyes of other wizards, this is a match, a single and simple thing that cannot be further simplified. But travelers like Liu Sen are thinking about the microscopic composition and atomic structure. Draw your own cage. Taking a deep breath, he changed a match and started from scratch. No longer think about what components or periodic tables of elements. Just firmly confirming the shape and sharpness of the needle in my mind. Feel with your heart, wave your wand, recite spells, and unleash a magical power from within. At first, this magic seemed to be unable to find a way out of its body, rushing aimlessly. But suddenly it received an attraction, like a shaking cola opening the bottle cap, and all the gas had an outlet for release. That's exactly Liu Sen's wand over there. Under the control of Liu Sen's thinking, magic was refined through the use of a wand, resulting in a certain set of rules. Pop. An electric arc shot out from the wand once again, and the hit match flew into the air with a bang, landing on the table and making a crisp and pleasant ding-ding sound. Great. Mr. Liu Sen actually did it in the first class. Everyone take a look. It's perfect. Gryffindor adds 5 points. Oh. Miss Granger. You did a good job too. You're almost successful. Keep working hard. Liu Sen was immersed in the wonderful experience he had just experienced, unable to extricate himself for a long time. He seemed to feel the entire process of casting the spell, but was unsure if it was an illusion. Then he brought a few more matches and tried to recall the feeling he had just felt, hoping to have another wonderful experience. However, he only produced needles of different lengths and thicknesses, and the feeling disappeared even after class. He could only shake his head in disappointment, but in the eyes of others, it was just that the top student had achieved the highest score and was still pretending that he couldn't solve the big problem using 3 methods. Pooh! How infuriating! Chapter 9. Curse and Herb Classes. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ron's appetite remained as good as ever, while Harry sighed during lunch. I thought magic was just waving a wand, but I didn't expect there were so many complex principles to learn. Hermione. Of course. We still have a lot to learn. In my opinion, the complexity of magic is no less than science. Don't lose heart, Harry, except for Liu Sen and Hermione, we haven't made any changes to the match, Neville comforted. Harry, don't worry, I bet you have hidden talents that haven't been discovered yet. Everyone has their strengths. Liu Sen also comforted him, knowing that Harry is at least skilled in Quidditch. Every little wizard here has a great love for Quidditch, and whether eating or walking, one can hear discussions about flying brooms. For example, Malfoy boasted that he was very good at flying and almost crashed into a Muggle helicopter, which of course was his boast. But Ron said he almost ran into a Muggle fixed-wing glider when he was a child. The little wizards are full of love for Quidditch, a sport that involves riding a broomstick, no less than the Muggles' love for football and basketball. But this is his pain for Liu Sr. Before the start of school, Liu Sen bought a Halo 2000 in Diagon Alley. Although the main purpose is scientific research, Liu Sen found himself lacking in talent in this area when he brought it home. As a top-level racing broom, the Lightwheel 2000 is top-notch in terms of design, workmanship, handling, and sensitivity in the wizarding world. But Liu Sen experimented in the basement and found himself stumbling even when he let the broom float. You're so angry. I really want to dismantle it. Lightwheel 2000, however, it is estimated that Lu Guizhong has already opened it n times by now. After lunch, the few of them went back to the dormitory. At Liu Sen's suggestion, all of Harry's textbooks were put in Liu Sen's backpack. This way, there is no need to go back and forth, and you can focus on dealing with the changing stairs and the stairs that may disappear at any time with light hands and sharp feet. The first class in the afternoon is Professor Flavia's, Dean Ravenclaw, Curse class. He is a short wizard with fairy blood and visited the Liu family's house before the start of school. How short is he? During class, he stood on a stack of tall books, otherwise he wouldn't be able to see the students. Not surprisingly, when the class called for Harry's name, Professor Flavia fell down excitedly. Fortunately, his magical skills were very high, and his lectures were kind and humorous. Liu Sen and the others listened attentively. Another thing that made a few people happy was that this class was taught with the little wizards of Ravenclaw, who were much kinder than the people of Slytherin, and they were all smart and easy to learn. Hermione, who knows everything, faced a lot of competitors who love learning like her, but still actively spoke up in class and won 5 points for Gryffindor. Hermione, who pulled back a game, appeared very happy, laughing uncontrollably, revealing her iconic big teeth. Ron saw the cat chuckling under the table. Liu Sen thought to himself, "Buddy. Laugh. Maybe these are all beautiful memories for you too in the future." However, what troubles everyone is that Flavia requires everyone to master the basic theories of magic spells in order to practice casting. Very reasonable, according to the original work, I only practiced the floating spell before Halloween. You should know that the destructive power of the little wizard is still very powerful. Incorrect casting and careless attitude can make simple spells dangerous and deadly. For example, in history, there was a wizard named Barufio who mispronounced a floating spell and summoned a bison out of thin air to step on him. Upon hearing this, Liu Sen had a bold idea. He. No, it's too dangerous. With a weight of over 1,000 pounds of adult bison, if you step on it, it will be Cohus, it's shattered. Driving away the terrifying, tempting, thoughts in his mind, Liu Sen focused on learning theoretical knowledge. The last class in the afternoon is herbal medicine. Liu Sen and all the students from the Lion Academy had to accept it, and this was another class we had together with the Snake Academy. Liu Sen observed the teacher's seat and found many teachers who did not match the original work. After asking senior students, he found out that those teachers were mainly responsible for the students of Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. This also explains how several teachers from 7 grades, 4 colleges, and 28 classes were busy coming over in the movie. In the damp and warm greenhouse, the little wizards met many magical herbs. However, there is basically no danger, even crying like Mandela grass can make people unconscious, and they will only be exposed to it in 2nd grade. Malfoy muttered in class, thinking that things like changing soil and fertilizing should be done by servants. The little wizards wore dragon skin gloves and, under the guidance of the kind and chubby Professor Sprout, Dean Heckpack, mixed dragon dung, plant ash, and soil into a pile of soil to create a nutrient soil suitable for most herbs. Besides enduring the pungent smell, most of the little wizards had a great time playing. I don't know if there are spells like Bubble Curse that can filter out odors. Liu Sen took note of this in his heart and prepared to study it. He didn't want to endure this unpleasant smell. It was too overwhelming. The first thing the little wizards do after class is to go back to the dormitory and take a shower. Liu Sen also noticed that Neville was particularly interested in the flowers and plants here, and remembered that he would take over Sprout's class in the future. After dinner, Ron took out a set of wizard chess, which he was skilled at. Harry and Neville are no match for Ron. Their few remaining pieces were hammered by Ron's various explosive hammers. Wizardry chess and Muggles play chess with the same rules, but each piece is enchanted, able to move and hit people. You just need to tell which chess piece is going where, and they will defeat the opponent according to the rules. Liu Sen, do you want to have a round? Ron said happily. No, I don't want to be abused. You guys play, I'll go to the library and check some things. After speaking, Liu Sen walked out of the public lounge alone, trying his best to show a kind smile along the way, otherwise the portraits on the wall would have to flee again. The library is located on the 5th floor and has a large collection of books, with thousands of bookshelves. Mrs. Ping is the librarian here. Not to mention damaging books here, even if someone makes a louder noise in the library, they will immediately receive severe criticism. The learning atmosphere here is still good. The little wizards in groups of 3 under the bookshelf are focused on flipping through books, and many senior students are here to search for information and occasionally copy it on parchment. Liu Sen paced between rows of bookshelves, and there were quite a few materials he wanted to look up. But the 2 most urgent issues that need to be solved are brain blockade surgery. Brain sealing technique is a profound magic, belonging to a special wandless casting technique that can block mind-reading techniques. When Harry was in his senior year, he learned to use probing to isolate Voldemort. Professor Snape is a master of brain-sealing techniques, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to perform the infernal affairs under Lao Fu's command so well. Secondly, Dumbledore must know, and it seems difficult to imagine the magic that old Deng doesn't know. But these 2 guys, Liu Sen, definitely wouldn't dare to ask for advice. He knows how much dark history and heartbreak Harry exposed while practicing brain block surgery. Speaking of the infernal affairs, Liu Sen remembered the proud Malfoy who later learned the technique of brain blockade. It was taught to him by Voldemort's powerful subordinates. Let him coordinate inside and outside to attack Hogwarts. Liu Sen dare not tell anyone about the identity of his interloper, and there is no way to overcome the impasse of the separation ceremony. And in the Dumbledore principal's office, he was in a dazed state and neglected to take precautions, which may also be uncontrollable. But Liu Sen still wants to close his mind as soon as possible and lock all the secrets firmly in his heart. The second point I want to solve is the problem that Liu Sen has been struggling with since entering the magical world. His rolling pin-like wand. Although the power increase and lightning effects are very impressive, the design is far from that of a master. Even if it's not visually noticeable, it's great. Liu Sen didn't know which book could record such obscure knowledge as cerebral blockade, and he didn't dare to ask Mrs. Ping directly, even if she could give an answer in just 1 second. He had no choice but to slowly search. At the deepest part of one of the bookshelves, Liu Sen saw a tall, sunny and handsome senior student reading a thick ancient book with great interest. Liu Sen accidentally glanced at it and saw that there were wands painted inside. And marked with many annotations. He was immediately caught in the eye, it was obviously a book about wands. So he stood behind the senior and followed closely with concentration. After a while, the senior picked up his notes and prepared to transcribe what he saw in the book into his own notebook, only then did he notice Liu Sen behind him. Oh. Sorry, senior. When I passed by, I saw content about wands in a book and followed it for a while. I hope you don't mind. Liu Sen said shyly. Wow. Are you also interested in the construction of wands? Are you a freshman? He said happily. Gryffindor freshman, my name is Liu Senator. Hello senior. Cedric Diggory, Hitchpatch Academy, hello. Oh, wait, Liu Senator, I got it, I heard you made Pippi Ghost. He suddenly remembered who Liu Sen was and in eye contact, asked if he had made Pippi Ghost gag. Regarding this, I didn't actually mean it. However, Pippi Ghost shouldn't die. The principal said it's a special ghost, Liu Sen explained as he looked back at the senior in front of him. Cedric. Triwizard contestants. In a sense, he is the best student in the entire Hogwarts. The Light of Badger Academy. Ah, that's a pity. You know, everyone has been resentful of Pippi Ghost for a long time. If it never appears again, no one will miss it. But you're really amazing. Many people have tried to expel Pippi Ghost but failed. There's no way to deal with him. Liu Sen and Cedric's conversation caught Mrs. Ping's attention, and before she got angry, the two quickly left the library. After running away, the two of them looked at each other with a smile, and Cedric continued, a long time ago, a former principal set up a trap in an attempt to catch the Pippi Ghost. Guess what? Pippi Ghost not only remained unscathed, but also used his weapon to make a big fuss at Hogwarts. Liu Sen was also stunned and said, is it so fierce? Yeah. In the end, no one was able to subdue it, so the principal agreed to Pippi Ghost's several conditions, such as giving him a beautiful hat and allowing him to swim in the boys' restroom every Monday. That's why Pippi Ghost stopped. Since then, no one dares to catch it. So, buddy, I dare say you will definitely be written in a section of Hogwarts school history in the future. Liu Sen chuckled a few times and humbly said, "It's okay, it was actually an accident. I don't know why I used such a powerful move." Cedric suddenly thought of something and said, "By the way, were you interested in this book just now?" He handed the borrowed book to Liu Sr. Appreciation of Ancient Wizard Spell Props. Liu Sen took over this heavy book and opened it, flipping through a few pages. Inside was not only an explanation of the wand, but also an introduction to many strange casting props. That's really good. This is exactly the book I'm looking for. You read it first. After reading it, lend me it. Liu Sen closed the book and said reluctantly. Cedric. It's okay, I've finished reading the parts I'm interested in. Actually, there are only a few pages of content about wands inside. If you only want to read wand books, I can recommend a few to you. Liu Sen was simply too happy. He was worried about how to find the relevant books and quickly thanked him. Cedric was Hufflepuff's scout, and after taking some time to read books and have training tasks, he made an appointment with Liu Sen to discuss next time before leaving. Liu Sen returned to the library to find several books recommended by Cedric. The Development and Transformation of Wands, The Most Loyal Comrades. Wands, The Basic Construction Principles of Modern Wands, Casting Materials and Alchemy. All packed and borrowed. Liu Sen walked out of the library with heavy steps, thinking of the long journey back to bed. He instantly remembered the backpack he had forgotten to bring. It's impossible to move back step by step on such a long road. I'm a wizard. Liu Sen thought, putting down a stack of books that almost covered his sight. After thinking for a while, I had an idea. I can use the floating spell. Liu Sen saw no one around and softly recited a spell, Yugadam Leviosa. The book was hit by a small lightning bolt that shot out from Liu Sen's wand, but there was no response. Liu Sen was not angry. After all, the floating spell should start practicing with light feathers. He carefully felt and recalled the key points of casting from the book. Concentrate, recite the curse again, wave your wrist, and unleash your magic. As Liu Sen became highly focused, he seemed to feel the entire process of casting the spell again. The mobilization of magic within the body, refinement and constraint when passing through the wand, and the unfolding of magic into a complex magical framework when in contact with the object being cast, vaguely sensing a mysterious rule. The book immediately broke free from gravity and floated as if it should have been. Liu Sen, for some reason, breathed a sigh of satisfaction, with a sense of pleasure in finding order. Just then, a mournful cat cry sounded not far away. Hush! Whose cat's meowing is so unpleasant? Liu Sen's goosebumps started to rise. In the blink of an eye, a thin cat with messy hair and blood-red eyes looked fiercely at Liu Sen at the corner. Mrs. Loris. Liu Sen knows about this cat. Harry, Ron and the others have encountered it before, and the twin brothers have also mentioned it. This cat is very clever, and any violation of the little wizard's behavior will be discovered by it first, and then meow Mrs. Loris turned her head and ran away, giving the administrator Filch a message. Damn it! This loser cat. Did I make any mistakes? Liu Sen looked at himself and then at the book floating in the air. Chapter 10. Filch Cries. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text.